Coming back the other way. Ifatu Melifonwu. This is going to be over. Lions are going to win it. Lions are bringing the NFC North title back to Detroit.
All right. Well, hey, we're in. We're live. We're happening. It's Monday night mock draft party with Will tonight. So no prep today. None at all. I did not get ready for this. So I'm going to pick them live, but I'm going to try to do it quickly. I'm not going to put a ton of effort into all the other teams because right now, all that's going to happen next week, Wednesday, in a 4-hour live event where we're going to be live doing the pre-draft party, kind of going through all of it, you know, how the Lions are going to get to where they need to go and what really needs to take place for them to get the players that we think they're going to take, right? We're hopeful. We're hopeful that all the work pays off, but, you know, just like everybody else that does this, 99.9% of us are going to be wrong. So we'll see how good we are, I guess. I mean, that's the only measuring stick we have is Brad Holmes, right? That's all we can compare ourselves to, which is not much of a comparison because he's at a different level. So interesting news that I kind of just happened upon today into looking at the Lions' top 30 visits. But before I get to that, let me grab a drink real quick, and then I'll be right back. I forgot to grab something to drink. Give me 1 second. All right. So how's everybody doing tonight? Another beautiful day in Michigan. By the way, I appreciate everyone helping to push Team Lucas out there. Haven't even come close to 250 reposts yet, but you can be rest assured that Rocked On Podcast Network went ahead and made the donation. It's done. But keep pushing it, man. Keep pushing it out there. Keep being part of positivity and change, because that's what this world needs, man. We need some more positivity. Kindness and caring goes a long way. And even with your Detroit Lions, man, it's part of it. So interesting news that I want to chat about briefly, though, is Lions are bringing in Marshawn Nealon for a top 30 visit. And then I got to thinking, Wednesday is the last day for top 30 visits. Now, the question that I have is that this Wednesday or next Wednesday? From what I understand, it's this Wednesday. Has anybody seen anything different about when the last day is for top 30 visits? Because I'm pretty sure it's this Wednesday. And if that's the case, this might be the lowest amount of pre-draft visits the Lions have ever done. which is kind of weird, like really weird. So I think that might be telling us a little bit. Maybe we'll see, or at least it helps me to identify a few things. I'm not sure that I'll share it all tonight, but maybe next week, Wednesday. But I think that the pre-draft visits, I'm going to try to look it up real quick. I think it's this Wednesday. So let me go through the visits that they have in already. And I mean, you guys can deduce, for what you want. I mean, what you want to think about what the Lions are going to do. I think it's all up in the air still, but so Quantez Stiggers obviously came in early in the process. Christian Boyd, Nehemiah Pritchett, Cion Vaki, cornerback Ernest Rakestraw, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Andrew Phillips, Terrion Arnold, cornerback Kalen Carson, defensive tackle Michael Hall, which was just this week. The giant over the border, Giovanni Manu, the huge offensive tackle, Jerzon Newton, and then Marshawn Nealand I think he's set to come in today or tomorrow, I think was the day. And then pro day. So that's it for top 30. That's it. There's literally let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 13. That's it. 13 out of the top 30. You get 30 visits, and they've only used 13. That's kind of weird. Because the pro day doesn't matter. The combine doesn't matter. Those don't count, even if they're formal. From the way that I understand it, I mean, you look at, let's just take the Packers for a moment here and what they've brought in. So they've brought in Zach Zinter, Edrin Cooper, Michael Hall, Jarian Jones, Christian Boyd, Jaquan Shepard, Trevin Wallace, Tyler Guyton, Omar Brown, Kitten Oladapo, Tyron Hopper, Amarius Mims, Chris Edmonds, Bryce Gallagher, Ray Davis, Tremaine Burton, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Austin Booker, Akeem Dent, Giovanni Manu, Donovan Jennings, Marshawn Nealand. So that's 22 to our 13. And then in the pro day workouts and private meetings, they've brought in apparently one. But in the combine formal interviews, they brought in 1, 2. There's a whole host of them right there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And at the All-Star circuit, 16, 17, 18. So they've brought in, way more than 30 is what I'm saying. Because the rest of them don't matter. The pro day, the combine, none of that stuff matters. It's just what you're going to bring in-house. So I'm a little bit baffled by this. A little bit baffled because in a draft where every single season, but in a draft where the guys that you interview, Brad, what does Brad say? He just said it. You don't know these guys, right? So how are you going to bring them in when he was talking about free agency? You know who you know. Well, how are you going to know these guys if you don't bring them in? I can't imagine that he's not going to try to. I mean, does he seriously have 18 meetings or whatever over the next couple of days? I can't see that. I can't see that happening. I really can't. So I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments, or at least in the chat. What do you think the reasoning is here? I'll give you a hint of what I'm thinking. Is Brad Holmes only going to be focusing on 3 or 4 guys in this entire draft? Is that what he's thinking? 3 or 4, period. I can't imagine that he's not going to try to grab, 5, 6, 7 guys, but if you bring in a limited amount, that to me means one of two things. Either you're planning on only bringing in a limited amount, by drafting them, or he's only focusing on a few positions and doubling up, which I think, quite honestly, is what he's going to consider here. Maybe he is going to grab 2 offensive linemen. Maybe he is going to grab 2 defensive linemen. Maybe he will grab 2 cornerbacks or cornerback safety. We'll call them DBs. That's 6 guys right there. Maybe he will grab 2 linebackers. Who did he talk to at the combine, Tracy? He actually was pretty full at the combine. Let's see here. So at the combine, it was Darius Robinson, Braylon Trice, Marshawn Nealon, Brian Thomas, Xavier Legette, Devontae Walker, Johnny Newton, Sion Vaki, Kingsley Su'a-Matataia, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Quinton Mitchell, Malik Mustafa. So if you were to just, take a wild guess right there, he talked to defensive ends, a couple defensive tackles, but mostly defensive ends, wide receivers, and DBs. That's it. That's really all he spoke to at the combine. And then at, top 30 visits, Quantez Stiggers, cornerback, Christian Boyd, defensive tackle, but Nehemiah Pritchett, cornerback, Sion Vaki, DB, and running back, Enos Rakestraw, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Andrew Phillips, Terrion Arnold, Kalen Carson. So far, that's 2 positions, DB and D-line. Michael Hall, D-line. And then your first offensive tackle, Giovanni Manu. Then Jerzon Newton, D-line. Marshawn Nealon, D-line. So he spoke to 3 positional groups. If you consider, cornerbacks and safety as a positional group, defensive backs in the top 30. And he did the same thing at the combine interviews. It was D-line, DBs, and wide receivers. So now you can add wide receivers to the mix. There's 4 groups that he's focused on. I don't know why I'm doing it like that. That pinky doesn't work. Yeah. I don't know. Kind of weird. It's making me a little bit more excited though to think about the fact that if he does double up, he's going to, give this team an insurance policy to make sure that one of those guys is going to work out this year. I think that would be interesting. Interesting process for Brad Holmes. He's just on a different playing field than everybody else, man. You know how they say everyone else is playing checkers and he's over there playing chess. Well, I'm in the sandbox, playing marbles personally. That was my game back in the day. G-Rod, are you a mechanic? The wrench. Yeah, moderator. They help keep the chat nice and smooth. This weather it's got me going up and down with allergies today. I didn't take any allergy meds today. All right, so the plan for tonight, I'm just going to roll through mock draft, and I'm going to do it live. I want to go through the Lions picks, though, all of them. And, a lot of this I'm just going to kind of fly through. But I was considering just kind of letting the first one kind of run itself. And I just want to see what's changed because I haven't done one of these in weeks where I've let it just run itself and do its own thing. So I am interested to see what's changed. Let me get one pulled up here and then I'll throw it on the screen. If Brad Holmes trades down, who is the Lions' first pick? That's a great question. I still think it's got to be corner or defensive end. I really don't know. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to know who's going to be on the board, and how far he trades down. So if you give me a little bit more of a parameter with it, like trades down to 34 or 35, well, then I would think that there could potentially still be a pretty good corner there, potentially. And there's definitely going to be a defensive end there. So I think it really depends on how far down he moves. Now, if he were to move straight back to like 45 and add, another one right there, then yeah, I don't know. I think then you're going to be lucky to get one of these top tier corners, or at least what's pegged as a top tier corner. They're probably going to be gone. So I'm going to set this up here. Let me get it on the screen. All right. So straight away, I'm going to do this more in the middle between public and PFF board. Because I trust PFF a little bit more than I do the general public that picks, all of their Saturday favorites for their Sunday team. And I think that most general managers do care about positional value, so I'm going to bump that up just a little bit. Drafting for need, I'm going to back that back because I think that a lot of teams are going to, try to focus on best player available. They see that it's working for Brad Holmes, and I'll keep randomness kind of where it's at. I'm just going to choose the Lions in this draft. We're going to fly through this one. We're going to let it do its thing, and I'm going to see who's available. So I'm going to try to take the best pick I can with what's left over for me. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm kind of mocked out, like all the work that I'm putting in for next week. I'm trying not to give you guys my answers to the test next week because I'm not, it's not so much you, it's everybody else that likes to steal content, steal ideas. So I'm trying to play the game of not giving out too much information. I want it to come out on Wednesday because then it's a little bit too hard for people to take it and run with it before the draft. All right. So as expected, Caleb Williams comes off the board first, but Jaden Daniels coming off the board second. It's been hot topic lately. Drake May going third overall to the Patriots. This is clearly a PFF board. They do believe that there's potentially up to 5 quarterbacks that could be taken in the top 10, more likely in the top 7 picks, which I don't see it happening unless there's multiple moves. But in this move, I guess there's no trades that are happening. I wish that there would be one of these put together with a little bit of AI that, could scan all of the, latest topics and trends and news and see, what's out there and what's kind of been talked about and make a decision. But I don't know if AI is to that level yet. I guess you got to teach it, I guess. But so anyway, Marvin Jones off the board at 4. I mean, he's been pegged a Cardinal for months. And something tells me he's not going to be a Cardinal. But we'll see. We'll see next Wednesday. Rome Odunze, I've always had him as the top 1 or 2 wide receivers in this draft. To be honest with you, preference, I would not want to deal with the headache of Harrison. His talent is undeniable, but Rome Odunze just flies under the radar, man. He's not all about making trouble, making waves, or all about him. He just wants to play football. So that's why I like Rome a little bit better. But Malik Neighbors going at 6 is crazy. Especially with some of these rumors that we've heard about, Daniel Jones potentially being done in New York. I don't know if that was just like extreme rumor mill happening or if there was any fact to that. I would be shocked if the New York Giants just signed him to a massive deal and decided that they're going to try to move off of him through this draft. I would be shocked because there's just not a quarterback that I believe is going to be the big difference or better than Jones. But anyway, it is what it is. Joe Alt, top 7 pick expected. Brock Bowers, top 10 pick, probably expected. This would be a shocker that Jer'Zhan Newton goes to the Bears. I would think that they're going to want to give Caleb either an offensive tackle or a wide receiver. Byron Murphy going top 10. Interesting. Quinn Mitchell to the Vikings over the Vikings making a move. I don't see that happening. There was a good question the other day. I don't remember who said it. It might have been Brian Welsh talking. I think he texted me it actually. Talking about the Vikings probably, just kind of faking everybody out. Maybe they're not going to move up at all. Maybe they're just going to stay put and grab whoever they can grab and worry about a quarterback next year and faking everybody out, getting everybody else to move and do things. That's part of the process. It's part of the game of chess here. Latu over Turner, I would be disappointed. I would be very disappointed. I think that Turner is probably one of the best defensive ends in this class. I think Jared Verse by far is the most talented. But some of these guys like Turner may have a bigger ceiling than Jared Verse. I think with Jared Verse, what we're seeing is what we're going to get at least, for the first year or two, and then he'll probably plateau by year 3. But he's going to be very consistent and pop off the page right away. A lot of offensive tackles kind of going right in a row. Mims, Fashanu, Latham, Brian Thomas at 22 to the Eagles. I think that's a good pick there. I like the Lions sliding in somewhere between 22 and 20. Then another rash of offensive linemen, and then a linebacker in the first round, Peyton Wilson. That one I wouldn't agree with. His knees are a bit of a concern. So Lions at 29, we've got Kool-Aid. We have Tyler Nubin. We have J.J. McCarthy, Adonai Mitchell, West Virginia center, Zach Frazier, Mike Sainristril, Braden Fisk, Chris Braswell, Ernest Rakestraw, Chop Robinson, Darius Robinson. So I'm going to make a trade, right? So someone mentioned earlier, what would happen if the Lions traded back? Well, this is where we're going to do it. That's first draft. I'm going to trade back. That's what I would do, but not for this one. The second one we will. So, I mean, I've got to take a corner. I have to. I've got to hope and expect that I'm going to get a defensive end, down at pick 61. With the way this draft is going already, maybe not. So with that said, let's just hope I can get Ruka Ororo at 61. He's probably going to be gone, but I'm taking Kool-Aid. I know it's not a very favorable pick in the beginning. I think a lot of people wanted defensive end. I don't put it past Brad to grab a linebacker. I mean, you guys heard Coach Bono yesterday, and, the linebacker crew, he thinks is a little bit thin. Maybe we're not as talented at the linebacking, spot as we had hoped. Maybe that's part of the problem, especially for the intermediate. I mean, everything over the middle killed us this last year. And our coverage details in the middle of the field were terrible. If we had a better coverage linebacker, maybe that would help. But I don't think you need just one, though. I think we need 2 or 3 really good coverage linebackers. We need guys that can do it all. I don't think that we have really good coverage linebackers right now. I don't think that any of them are really that good. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do think there's the possibility the Lions grab a linebacker in this draft. But we're not bringing him in. We're not, Brad's not talking to anybody right now. And maybe that's his way of, hiding the weenie, so to speak, right? Maybe he's thinking, okay, last year I brought all these players in. I drafted from that board, that everyone saw. The guys we brought in is who we drafted. Maybe this year I'll bring the guys in that I like, guys that I want to talk to, guys I have questions on. But maybe I won't bring in some of the guys that I really like. I know enough about them. Maybe. I think that would be highly unlikely, but maybe he's trying not to tip his hand, or maybe he's going to move up. Maybe he only wants 3 or 4 guys, like I said earlier. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. All the good guys are gone. So Marshawn Nealon's gone to 57. Wow, Rook went at 49. That's incredible. Braswell gone at 39. Fisk gone at 38. Chop at 35. Darius at 34. So you guys remember everything that I've said every Monday, right? Of course not. I don't even remember everything I said. But between pick 35 and 48 is the meat of this draft. And according to this draft currently, this PFF draft, that is exactly correct. Now, you could stretch it to 49, but the reason why I say 48 is you could still grab Rook. You could still grab Adisa Isaac. You could still grab a really good tackle in Kingsley, a really good corner in Enos Rakestraw, a top edge player in Chris Braswell, Braden Fisk, who I think will end up being, a defensive end at the next level, kind of a John Kaminsky, Josh Paschal type hybrid, but just better, more physical. Just the arm length. He's got to get pop first. He's got to be able to clear the punch first. You got Chop Robinson at 35, but you're going to miss Darius Robinson at 34. If the Lions don't take Darius Robinson at 29 and they don't have a pick, before 35, I think that they're definitely going to miss out on him if he's not gone before 29. At least that's what I'm thinking today. We'll see what I say next week, Wednesday. So because all the top guys are gone, I mean, what would I do now? That's the question. Like, which direction do you go in? I've got 10 minutes to make a decision, and I'm not doing that tonight. I'm not taking all 10 minutes, but you still have Braylon Trice, who I'm not high on at all. The Lions brought him in though, which means either they had a lot of questions or maybe they felt like there was something there for him. According to PFF, he's a disruption in production kind of player. His sack totals over the past 2 years are low compared to some of his peers, but his name is near the top of the pressures leaderboard. Sounds like another Aiden Hutchinson. He has a frenetic pass rushing style, which has its pros and cons. On one hand, he's going 100% on every play. On the other hand, his hands can be erratic and misplaced because of it. Again, kind of like Hutch. He loves the physical parts of the trench play, which is good since he'll be one of the bigger edge rushers at 274 pounds. He's definitely a bigger edge rusher. Most of his snaps are from the stand-up position, but he makes it work. His length is somewhat of an issue, and he won't turn the corner like other edge rushers, which means his bend is going to be lacking. At 6'4", 274, I wish that PFF would pull in, all of the combine scores, just make a little box right here. I mean, you got all this wasted space, put a box right there that has the combine, measurements and, the 40, the split, vertical. It would make our job that much easier to be able to talk about these guys and everybody's job, quite honestly, that utilizes PFF. So Austin Booker, I am not a big fan of at all. But if I were to walk out of this draft without an edge rusher, before 73, I think that would be a mistake, a big mistake. And if I were to take a wide receiver right now, I have Jalen McMillan. Don't know enough about him. Xavier Worthy, a little bit thin, a little light, very fast. Devontae Walker, I do like. He will not be there at 73, I don't think. And then you got Brendan Rice down there at 95. Will he even last that long? I highly doubt it. But you have those two options who I think would probably be your best options right now, Devontae Walker and Brendan Rice, at pick 73. So if you're really high on Devontae Walker, you take him right now. I think that's what you do. 6'2", 200. So he's not as tall as I was hoping he was going to be, but he's definitely a big body wide receiver. 200 pounds is not small for a wide receiver. And then, of course, when you look at Brendan Rice, oh, I'm going too far. He's the 6'3", 210 guy. So that's why I like Rice better. So with that being said, I mean, we're kind of out on this edge rusher game, right? It's either you're going to roll the dice on Austin Booker, or you're going to someone else's point in there, no dice on Trice or Rice. Or now we start looking at a guard. Do we bring in a Christian Haynes? Probably one of the, in my opinion, and others, he has some of the best footwork out of anybody in this draft class. Solid guard. 6'2", 313. He's a little bit short. That's about the only knock you're going to have on this guy is that he's a little bit short. Christian Mahogany is another one. He's got really good footwork. I mean, his combine was okay. It was nothing too crazy. 6'3", 322, a little bit taller, but what's an inch? It's the arm length that's going to matter the most. And I don't have any of that pulled up right now. And of course, I can't remember every single guy, but I do know that Mason McCormick is high on my list, and he's probably going to stay there. 6'5", 315. You can definitely pick him up a little bit later. I expect Brad Holmes to be able to move up or move back, one of the two. But edge rusher, Gabriel Murphy was interesting to me when I watched his tape. Javon Solomon was another one that was interesting to me when I watched his tape. I think it's really early to take either of them. Mohamed Kamara, another guy that, put some goods on tape. Even Nelson Caesar, but he's a much later draft pick. The fact that the Lions have brought some of these guys in tells me that they're interested in taking an edge rusher later in the rounds if they have to. We need an edge rusher. I'm going to give our coaching a chance here in development and say that Braylon Trice is going to develop. I do not want to pass on an edge rusher that has, more of a opportunity than someone that's just a pure project. I think that Brendan or that Trice has, more of an opportunity to impact the game right away. He doesn't have to start behind Marcus Davenport. He does not have to start right now. And quite honestly, unless we were to grab somebody at 29 or earlier, I doubt that they're going to start over Davenport. As long as Davenport is healthy, I think it's going to take a lot to beat him out. And especially for a rookie, maybe not a second-year guy, but for a rookie, I think it's going to take a lot to beat him out. Maybe they'll go rotational. Maybe they'll do more of a rotation where they're splitting snaps. More situational football. And I think that's where it's going to help a rookie. We'll see. Yeah, Trice is not better than Nealand. I would agree with that, but Nealand is already gone. So I can't take him. That's the only problem. He's already gone. So next pick, 73. I think that this is where we have to take our receiver. We've already kind of put ourselves in a box by just kind of letting things pass us by. And I'm not doing any trades in this first one. So Javon Baker doesn't meet the height requirement. Johnny Wilson, I would run away from. I know some people really like him because he's, a story. He's tall. Look, he's just not it for me. You got to take Brendan Rice. I'm going to get a terrible grade, but we've got to get that wide receiver, someone that can compete with Amon-Ra St. Brown, bring in another Sun Devil, and I think that would be great competition in that locker room all day, every day. Yeah, next draft, I'll do some trades. I just want to see how these things are going to fall to me. Kind of see what's going on here. I wish Quantez Stiggers was in here because this is probably where I would be comfortable taking him, even though we've already selected a corner. I would not run away from taking another corner in this draft later in the draft. but we do need a guard. And it looks like this list has not changed much at all since the last time I've done this. You still got the same guys sitting here. Drake Nugent, Hunter Norzad, Javion Cohen, Tanner Bortolini, Dylan McMahon. I do think that the number one call for the Lions is offensive tackle, though. I think that we would get much more out of a tackle that we convert to a guard, especially, the height difference, the arm length, the different kind of footwork that tackles have to use. None of these guys obviously have been in talking to the Lions. I guess I'm really baffled that the Lions have not brought in a ton of offensive linemen. It's really baffling to me. But then again, if any of you guys want to do a little bit of research while we're doing this and see if you can find the date for the last date of top 30 visits, I think it's this Wednesday. If it's next Wednesday, then I'm panicking for no reason. But if it's this Wednesday, then I think that the Lions are doing something a little bit weird. And I don't know why. All right, is my safety still here? Oh, he's gone. So, again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions take a linebacker. We do need one. I just don't know where they're going to take him yet. I don't know if it's going to be, post cuts, after the 53-man cuts. I don't know if that's where they're going to target, someone that has playing experience. They can help this team this year, or if it's going to be a later round guy that's going to be more of a project. Could be both, but right now we only have 5 linebackers on the roster, and I would say that the Lions would probably be comfortable having at least 6 that they can have on the roster during the season. I just don't see anybody in here that's extremely exciting right now. Defensive line, where's it at? There we go. Wow, let's look at this. Michael Hall, he's a second rounder. Christian Boyd. Okay. Well, offensive lineman it is. Mike Nugent obviously has some good experience. Dylan Johnson is another guy that, I love his work. He's too small. Too small. Or I'm sorry, Javon Foster, not Dylan. I guess he's not too small. Corner. So Lions definitely need to add another defensive lineman, at least, someone that they can bring in for more competition. Not everybody's, always going to make the roster when they're drafted. I mean, obviously that's the hope. You still have a lot of positions to fill. Matter of fact, I wonder how many players we have on the roster right now. 66. So Lions still have 24 guys to add to this team for camp. So 24 guys. So if we get, 6 guys, 7 guys in the draft, let's just say 6, still have 18 more guys. That means the Lions are probably going to bring in 12 UDFAs, maybe more, and still have to get some more free agents signed. Of course, I don't know if this is updated with James Houston and Coyote Awosika. It does not look like it is. Oh, it is. There's Awosika. And James Houston. So it is updated. 66 guys. We definitely need a safety, though. That's for sure. To your point, News Drifter, we definitely need a safety. I like Kenny Logan. But Tyler Owens he's got the physical gifts, man. Not the greatest passer rating, though. I like this kitten guy, too. All right, it's probably a little early to take him, but I'm going to take him. Didn't I just take him? What happened? Oh, now we're at 205. Wait a second. Oh, that's right. We got 201 from Tampa Bay. So Lions now have 8 picks in this draft. 8 picks. I thought we only had 7. I do like Jalen Ford. I'm surprised he's still hanging around. Tyron Hopper. It's just a little small at 221. Like I just think that's way too small to be a linebacker. 242 is better. 6'3", better range. Terrible in coverage, though. We were just talking about coverage, man. And obviously he's not going to be, a starter right away. So that's fine. A lot of that stuff you're going to have to work on. Let's go to all here. But with the fact that we still need some offensive line help, this is probably a great opportunity to grab an offensive lineman again. But if Frank Gore Jr. is seriously sitting here, he's getting drafted without a doubt. I think it would be a big mistake to walk away from adding another dynamic running back like Frank Gore. I mean, he's small, but you want to talk about someone that has heart. Look at his dad. The dude was an animal. Complete animal. And, we have Netflix or, Craig Reynolds is back. But that doesn't mean anything. If Frank Gore can come in and beat him out, he can beat him out. The Lions will roll with 3, on the depth chart. And you probably have your 4th guy sitting on the practice squad. And you can absolutely protect a few guys. He might be one that you end up protecting. I could not walk away from Frank Gore. I couldn't. The only question would be, is Hunter Norzad a better opportunity because you need offensive line help and he's a center. So, he can play guard, obviously as a backup, but learning from Frank Ragnow would be critical at this moment, and having another backup that if, Frank went out, Graham Glasgow slides over, Hunter Norzad still doesn't have to play center. He can slide over to left guard or right guard or whatever the Lions needed him to do. So I'm going to have to pass on Frank. I'm going to keep building my offensive line depth and take Hunter. And I think his arms are a little short. All right. So we got 17th, not the 24th. 17th is the deadline at the team facility. The 24th is the deadline at any location. And we're talking about the last day to have a top 30 visit, right? Top 30. So they can still meet with players up until next Wednesday. Okay. So they're going to have a busy week. Which site was it? Would you mind posting the link, Tracy, if you can? Just throw it in the chat and I'll grab it. So if they can have off-campus visits, right? They can go and visit guys wherever they want. I find that kind of cumbersome, right? I mean, don't you want guys in your own facility so you can have all of your tape and everything ready and go through everything with them? Yeah. I'll have to look at that later too. Okay, so who have we taken so far? We have offensive lineman or center, Hunter Norzad. Grab the safety in Kitten, Oladapo. I would love to see him get a safety earlier than that. I really would. Javon Foster, a tackle. So we've kind of covered 3 offensive line positions with 2 guys. We got our wide receiver, Brennan Rice. So back to what I've been saying the last few weeks. If we're trying to get just 2 or 3 impact players out of the draft, I think you got them. You got Brennan Rice. He can be an impact player day one. Braylon Trice, as long as he's not what I think he is, I mean, based on the tape, I wasn't crazy excited about him, but I think that he's a better option than anything else you have later on. If that's who we were left with, if the Lions didn't make any moves, and that's who you're left with. I mean, that's just what you're left with. You got to make it work. You got to develop the guys. And then at 29, you got your corner of the future, Kool-Aid McKinstry. And so for the last few picks here, or the last pick here, if we're not going to bring in Boom Boom Bates, you've got to bring in a kicker. You have to. You have to. I would be really surprised if they didn't. But I really like Jaden Crometti. He's one of my favorite late round guys for the defensive line. Someone that would benefit greatly working behind DJ Reader. One of those days, man. I got the yawns again. So Crometti's my guy. I'm going to pass on a kicker because I expect the Lions to get Bates. What is this? PFF mock draft assistant. That must be new. It's been a while since I've done these. All right, we got an A for Kool-Aid. I don't care about the grades, but we got an A for Kool-Aid. Brendan Rice is a D+. I'm surprised. So B- is pretty good. What award? You got awards now? What is going on here? They've totally added a few things here. It's kind of fun, I guess. Top 79% of Lions drafts. That's where I finished. Well, let's improve upon that. So let me download this and see if I can get it, make it better according to PFF. Anyway, let's re-roll this one. So you guys tell me. I mean, what do you guys think? Tracy, what is this now? What am I missing? Oh, nothing, I guess. NFL.com. I see it. So the deadline for restricted free agents is the 19th. So you still have 4 more days for the Lions to finish, doing what they're doing. So after the 19th, though, what's interesting is any other restricted free agents that have not signed, I think they have to sit for the whole year. They can't play. I think that's how it works. If they're exclusive rights free agents, I think that they have to sit. They can't sign an offer sheet from another team. They can't play for another team. They can't do anything. They're done. So obviously the clock was ticking and these guys needed to get signed. What do you guys think about that? I mean, let's talk about that. Let me get this off the screen for a moment. So what do you guys think about the fact that James Houston is back? Well, last night we were talking about the edge position, and to Coach Bono's point, he really does like Marcus Davenport, and I know he's not, a huge needle mover for a lot of people or for a lot of the Lions fans because of what he did or didn't do last season. But the more you look at his history and his makeup and what he has been able to do when he's healthy, that's more intriguing. What's up, King SJ? If we can get Marcus Davenport at least back to, 70% ish of his 2022 season, we're talking someone that's better than anything we've had on the right side of that defense, which is an upgrade, right? That's all we're looking for is an upgrade. Someone that can come in and produce more. And then if you have James Houston, who gets back to his 2022 performance, and I guess that's the other thing that I don't understand about the negative criticism on Davenport. I mean, yeah, it was a shocker when it came out. I mean, I totally wasn't excited about it when the news broke. But we're not trashing James Houston. He didn't play at all really in 23. He didn't do anything. His stats were terrible in 23 because he didn't play. So he battled injury, and so did Davenport. So I don't think that we should discredit Davenport a whole lot, until let's see the guy work. Let's see him get back and work and hope that, he can put it all back together and put it on the field. Same for James Houston. If we're going to be negative, I guess, towards Davenport for not having a good 2023 because he was battling injury, then you would think that we would treat James Houston the same way. So for that, reason, I just would rather see people just say, hey, give him a shot. It can't be any worse than what we've had. And now we have 2 guys coming back off injury that, Houston exploded onto the scene. I was really expecting a lot from him last year, at least what he did in 2022. And, injury took that away. So now it's kind of do or die for both of these guys. Marcus Davenport is on a prove it deal. James Houston is really on a prove it deal. They're going to have to come in hungry, and they're going to want to have to win and earn everything they get. And, look, it doesn't mean they're not looking to add another playmaker over there. It's just that's what we're rolling with right now. And after 53-man cuts, there's going to be some really good ball players that are in shape, ready to go, and could potentially be upgrades again. And as long as we keep getting upgrades every single season, that means the team is going to get better every single season. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is seeing that, these guys can, tie it all together at the end of the day in a nice little bow and go put the work in. And hopefully the fruits of their labor will be shown, on the scoreboard at the end of each game. That's all we can really hope for. Jeff Buckler says it's just too bad that Houston got hurt. I think a lot of people are taking his skills for granted. What have you done for me lately? Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand this whole thing about James Houston. Look, from from what I've seen of his tape and what he's put on the field thus far, the guy has like an incredible ceiling. He's nowhere near polished. That just kind of excites me a little bit more. Here's what I don't want to have happen, and it probably will. James Houston's going to go to another team probably. Hopefully not, but he'll probably go to another team at some point, and he's going to explode, and he's going to be dominant, and it's going to be, another one of those stories that could have been the Detroit Lions. I feel like he's on the bad side of Aaron Glenn or something. Like Aaron Glenn's just kind of got it out for him for whatever reason, and I don't know why. And I hope that's not the case. I hope that there's no internal grudge, with Aaron Glenn over James Houston, because it didn't make sense last year why Glenn was trying to totally change up what Houston does well. And, you got to leave the guy just be a pass rusher. If that's what he does on third down, is sack the quarterback, I'm cool with that. I don't care if he plays 300 snaps the entire season. If he gets 12 sacks a year, I'm cool. 10 sacks a year, I'm great. 8 sacks a year, I'm happy. That's what we need. We need some sacks. We need some negative plays. We need some TFLs. We don't need, to have somebody out there for 3-4 plays in a row. Get these guys in and out, keep their legs fresh, use them to their strengths, let them do what they do well. And I don't know. I feel like James is kind of getting the raw end of the deal. And I guess we'll see what happens. It's going to be a fun season either way. I think it's going to be great watching James get back to it. I love his energy. I think he's a phenomenal player. He's been shown the right way to do things. Prime, got him to this point, to be honest with you. He's the one that changed the momentum for James Houston by switching up his position. And James hated it. And then he loved it because it worked. And I think that's kind of happening again. Now at the next level, there probably isn't a real big reason to do that, in my opinion. From the 1,000-foot view, I feel like James is just better left alone being a third down pass rusher, and just let him get after it. Tracy says AG needs to focus on their strengths, not keep trying to put them where they aren't supposed to be. I agree with that. Jeff Buckler feels that too about Aaron Glenn. Tracy, what do you think of Nealand? He is visiting too. Yeah, so I mentioned that earlier, that Nealand was coming in. I think it was either today or tomorrow that he's coming in, if he already hasn't been in. I read an article this morning that it was talking about Nealand. I think he's a phenomenal prospect. And I mean, just somebody that I've said this about a few players. I think he's going to turn some heads. I think he's going to surprise some people. He has the body. He has the build. Small time school. Who cares? I mean, Western's still a great school. My dad's alma mater. They produce some good football product, and we've seen it happen from other guys. Max Crosby being one of them, right? Max came from a small time Michigan school, one of the best pass rushers in the game. So it's sometimes, you know, your play gets overshadowed at the big time schools. And sometimes you are at a different level when you're just that much better than the rest of the guys. And that can happen at a small time school and kind of pump you up a little bit, you know, artificially. I don't think that's the case with Nealand. He's not perfect, right? He's got some flaws to him. He needs some coaching, some developing. He'll get it and he'll accept it. He's definitely a good dude. From all the interviews that I've seen so far, he's the Dan Campbell guy. Absolutely. We got to come up with a word for that, though. Got to stop saying Dan Campbell guy. We got to come up with a new word. Just got to make a new word. Print it on a shirt. King SJ says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what I believe too, man. Excuse me there. Jeff Buckler, as much as I want Houston to get back to 2022 form, I sure would like to add a hustler like Luther Ellis, or not Luther Ellis, like Ellis in the draft. I don't know how to get rid of these things, but for whatever reason, the last chat, I can only read 90% of it. So Mike P says he watched Nealand at Western. Kazoo is his hometown. Hey, man, I'm only 25 minutes from you, Mike P. The kid just kept getting better every year. That's the story, man. He's a baller. He loves to get after it. We'll have to watch some tape here soon. We're going to do some streams that are, you know, obviously not monetized, where we can break down tape. That's the one thing that we're going to love having Coach Bono around for, is when we do deep dives on tape, pregame, postgame, really breaking it down. We're going to be adding a new level to this. I think it's going to be really fun for you guys to watch and be part of, really get into the finite details of, you know, I look at things differently than some people, and, you know, you have a coach's view and then you'll have my view. It'll be fun to watch. We'll be able to break it down a lot easier, you know, with more people involved too. So, all right, let's get to it. Let's get to 7-round mock here with the Lions. How can I do this so I don't really... Well, I'll do the first 2 rounds. I take that back. We'll do the first 3 rounds. Turn the speed up. And we'll do the first 3 rounds tonight. And then I'll go into all the Lions picks at the end. Mike P used to break down football tape. Dude, if you do it, man, you should reach out. Reach out to the show. We would love to have more people involved in it. All right, so let's get on the clock here. Let's start this draft. I don't think it's any surprise at this point. Caleb Williams is going number 1 overall to the Bears. And I'm still a big proponent of Drake May going to Washington. I still think that there's some questions on Jaden Daniels, even though, I mean, the guy is clearly, in my opinion, he's clearly the better passer in this draft. I think that Jane Daniels has a supreme ball to any of these guys. There was some pretty wild stats that I was listening to and then reading about the other day. I'll have to listen to it again, but there was some crazy stats about Jaden Daniels and what he's done in his college career compared to all the other guys in the draft this year. I just wonder if there's a big question about his elbow bursitis. I know that picture looked really bad, but I don't think it's as bad as what people are trying to make it out to be. I think that's just the agents and everybody else involved that are trying to push players around to get their guys drafted. Drake May, though, for me, is definitely the pick here to Washington. I just think that Jaden Daniels is not going to go number 2. So yeah, Mike P, I didn't know you coach football, man. You should definitely reach out. Let me put my email in the bottom or in the chat. If you have time, if you want to get involved in doing some stuff, man, some special projects or anything, people would love it. They would absolutely love it. And then the show phone, you can always call that anytime too. Sometimes it's not on just because I'm busy, but all right. So Drake May, number 2 overall, Patriots. So there's been a lot more rumors flying around that Patriots may take a quarterback. And if that were to happen, it's probably not JJ McCarthy, at least from what we are hearing now, that if I don't know how to put it, like JJ's just not ready. He's got all the intangibles. He has a phenomenal arm, but he's just not ready from what I'm hearing and reading on some of the other high level podcasts, breaking down players, talking about the players, that taking JJ McCarthy that early would be a mistake. I mean, it just would be. But are you willing to gamble on taking JJ McCarthy that early if you can sit him? That's the question. So that team that takes JJ early needs to have another quarterback that can play. And JJ develop for, half a season or a season, get his feet underneath him a little bit, develop him, and then throw him out there. And the Patriots right now for their number 1 QB is you got Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi, and then Nathan Rourke behind them. Could you start the season with Jacoby? You absolutely could. I mean, what's wrong with Bailey Zappi? There's nothing wrong with him. I realize that the Patriots are over, Bailey at this point. But you could develop JJ and allow him to sit behind, Jacoby for the season. Let Jacoby go out there and do his thing. If you're losing, throw him in. But he needs some time. So why would you want to waste a 3rd overall pick? I don't think that would be wise. And could you get better value and potentially a better, a ball player with Penix, later on? So I really believe that the Patriots would be wise to move back right here. And I'm kind of going back to where I was at the beginning of the drafts. Like, I think the Patriots would be very, very wise to move out of this position. The question is, who are they going to trade with? What makes sense? Does it make sense to trade up with the Vikings? Are the Vikings playing coy right now? And yeah, Patriots did take out Penix. I thought Penix went somewhere else too, Eric, if you can remember. I thought just recently went out to dinner with somebody else too. I don't think it was the Vikings. It might have been the Vikings. So where do the Patriots trade? Because I mean, they could trade anywhere really in the first round and still have a shot at a quarterback. there's no way that Penix, is going to end up. Hold on a sec here. There's no way that Penix is going to end up in the top 10. I can't imagine that. I just can't. And Bo Nix, obviously, I don't think that. I don't think that Bo Nix is going to end up in the top 10 either. Between J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and Caleb Williams, I think that those are the guys that are going to end up going potentially top 20 with J.J. McCarthy, top 6 with Jaden Daniels, 7 with Jaden Daniels, somewhere in that range if someone doesn't move up. So do the Vikings move up? That's question number one. I don't know. I think that you've got a pretty good opportunity next year to grab a quarterback. There's some pretty good quarterbacks coming out. I know there's all these rumors about, Deion Sanders saying he's only going to allow his son to go to certain places. Well, maybe the NFL is not for you. Because if you get drafted, you get drafted. So this is a tough decision here. I think the Patriots would be wise to move back if they were to trade. I don't know of anybody that really has the draft capital to move up or is willing to give up the draft capital to move up to have it really make sense other than the Vikings. So Drake May goes number 2. Do the Vikings really value Jaden Daniels that much to give up 2 first-round picks to move all the way up? That's going to be the question. And if I were to talk about quarterbacks for a minute tonight, I wrote something on 3 of them. And let me grab that real quick. All right. So Jaden Daniels, 6'4", 210 pounds. Obviously the LSU Heisman winner of 2023. Kid obviously absolutely exploded onto the scene last year, or after transferring from ASU 2 years ago. Stats over 29 starts at Arizona State from 2019 to 2021. He had 32 touchdown passes, only 13 interceptions while completing 62.4% of his passes, 13 rush TDs. In 2022, which was his first season at LSU, he registered 28 total touchdowns, 17 passing, 11 on the ground, 11 running TDs or rushing TDs. In 2023, he threw for 40 TDs with just 4 interceptions and added 10 more on the ground. I mean, those are insane stats the last 2 seasons at LSU. And that's what you have to compare J.J. McCarthy to, is a Jaden Daniels and a Caleb Williams and a Drake May. How do they compare to a J.J. McCarthy, and why it doesn't make sense, to bring J.J. McCarthy up this early? So I think that Jaden Daniels is obviously the answer for the Patriots if they want a quarterback. I just don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. So J.J. McCarthy, obviously my biggest knock on J.J. is not so much where he played football. Obviously, no. It's the fact that, he didn't really attempt a ton of passes in the national championship game. 22.1% of his plays in 2023 were pass plays. That's my worry. So what does that really tell us about his arm talent? In my opinion, not enough. We don't know, is he going to be able to make the play with his arm, moving, scrambling out of the pocket? Is he able to get through the progressions quick enough? Those are the things we didn't see enough of. But with the other guys, I mean, the proof is there. I mean, there's tons of tape on it. Now, he did finish 4th in total QBR, though, in 2023. He did show really good accuracy. My other concern, could be the level of competition that they played early in the season. But at the end of the season, obviously the level of competition was there. It's just, I think that the plays that they ran, it was heavy, Blake Corum. It was heavy run game, heavy option plays. And I think that detracted from JJ. Like, they didn't do him any service there. Dude's a leader, though. I mean, complete scrapper. But I think that they did him a disservice by not letting him just sit back and chuck the ball, and run some of the plays that require more timing, if you will, as opposed to just kind of chuck it up and go get it. In Drake May, look, May's 2022 campaign was a masterclass in quarterbacking. It really was. He completed 342 of 517 passes, 4,321 yards, 38 TDs, just 7 interceptions. His proficiency on the ground was equally impressive, rushing for almost 700 yards and 7 scores. The departure, of Longo in 2023 could have been kind of a setback for him, but May really adapted quite brilliantly, actually. His numbers saw a slight dip, only 3,608 yards, 24 TDs to 9 interceptions. His on-field performance and technique, though, arguably improved in 2023, even though he had a little bit of a setback there. 6'4", 224 pounds. A guy he's big, man. He's a big quarterback. Wide body frame. He can throw the ball from all angles. A little known fact, if you don't remember, though, is one of our own, like I said before, Antoine Green was Drake May's one of Drake May's favorite targets in 2022 when he had such a good season. So he was able to connect with guys, that right now are kind of struggling in the league, struggling to find their way. But that gives me more hope that Antoine Green will become something. He just needs a little bit of time. So maybe we'll see that breakout this year from Antoine Green, hopefully. Drake May, I mean, he really cleaned up multiple awards. I mean, Manning Award finalist in 23, PFF third team All-American in 22, ACC Player of the Year 22, Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year in 22, FWAA Freshman All-American in 22, Manning Award finalist again in 22, Walter Camp National Player of the Year semifinalist in 22, the Maxwell Award semifinalist in 22, the Davey O'Brien Award semifinalist in 22, and in 2022 became just the 6th quarterback since 2010 to post 4,000 yards, 35 pass TDs, 650 rushing yards, and 7 rushing TDs in a season, joining Kyler Murray. So, in Deshaun Watson, Marcus Mariota, Johnny Manziel, and Robert Griffin. Here's the knock, though, on May. That list that I just read you, if he ends up being like all of those guys, he's going to end up washing out of this league. So that's the thing that we have to remember, too, is sometimes stats are not everything. What you do on the field, from a leadership standpoint and understanding your offense, getting guys in a position to win, doing all the small things right, will matter more at the end of the day than the big, gaudy numbers, because all of those guys that I just read to you, Marcus Mariota, Johnny Manziel, Robert Griffin III, Deshaun Watson, and Kyler Murray, all had insane stats, and they all washed out of the league. Deshaun Watson is basically washed out, but he's still somehow in it. Marcus Mariota just couldn't put it together. Robert Griffin III injured too much from running around. Johnny Manziel, allegedly enjoyed drinking too much. So Kyler Murray, he's still in the league. He's still trying to figure it out. It's not everything to have the best passing stats in the world as a quarterback. You've got to do things right. And I know I kind of got off on a tangent here. We're stuck on pick 3. So Patriots, I think that it would be wise for them to go ahead and take Jaden Daniels at pick 3. I think it's going to happen, at least right now. I'm going to go with that pick. I have not really liked this pick to the Patriots, but I think we're going to do it. A little early, but I think that he's just far and away a better quarterback right now than JJ McCarthy. Cardinals are going to move out of pick 4. Probably not. I think that they're going to go ahead and get Kyler, the guy that, he needs, which is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. That's a no-brainer. The Chargers are all over the place. They could use just about anybody on this team. Tracy says Ryan Leaf comparing to Drake May. And Mike P says the only thing I will say about JJ mechanically is better than May. His delivery has some problems. May's delivery? Yeah, I know that Ryan Leaf was a bust. Are you comparing him to Drake May? Is that what you're doing? I don't know. I don't think so. But the potential is always there. Stats are meaningless until you can prove that you can do it on the field at the next level. Yeah, exactly, Mike. Great statement. So Chargers all over the place. They could take anybody. They really could. I think that they would be extremely wise to trade back. I could say that about everybody because I kind of do. But I think that they would be extremely wise to move back. I really need to find my notes. One second. Grab my notes. I'm only working with 2 screens today. Laptop has officially been sent back to MSI so they could fix it. So Chargers, look, new coach, obviously a new identity. They're going to want to establish their own identity. Harbaugh values the trenches. We know that. He loves to build inside out. He's pretty much done that wherever he's been. And, whether it was the 49ers or Michigan, he wants to beef up the trenches and fight these guys mano a mano. Number one overall is build the trench and then start building beyond that. I don't believe the Chargers are really hurting on the offensive line, but they could still take one. He's going to want his guy. He's going to want somebody. The wide receiver room is quite thin in 24, though, or at least it was. And I did expect the Chargers to add a wide receiver early in this draft. So it's either for me, it's wide receiver, offensive line early. It could be a tight end. It could be Brock Bowers, but I think that Harbaugh would probably stay away from Brock Bowers now only because he has the opportunity to take the best offensive lineman in the draft right now. And that's why I think that the Chargers would trade out of this pick. They absolutely would. Or should. Because right now they've got Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, any of the defensive picks on the board. They could comfortably trade back to pick 12, 13, 14 and still grab anybody that they want. Now, who would want to move up? Well, your Vikings could move up, but what quarterback would they be going after? JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, or Michael Penix? The fact that they just met with Penix tells me that they're probably interested in grabbing Penix maybe a little bit later, or that was a complete decoy move where they're going out to this private dinner and they're getting everybody to think that, hey, we're just going to take the best quarterback available towards, pick 23 and not do anything in this draft, then smokescreen and move up on draft day. That way nobody else moves up right now. So I think the Vikings move up. And I think they do it right now. And I think that the Chargers are probably considering that it's time, for them to move back and build this team quicker. So let's just make the trade Vikings and Chargers and be done with it. Pick 11, pick 23 for pick 5. I think that's a little rich. Let me bring in the draft calculator. I might be a little rich. I don't know that the numbers add up on that. So 5 for 11 and 23. And that would be 23-26 in points given up for 1642. So the Chargers would have a 42% improvement. 42% improvement. Is that too rich? I don't know when the last pick 5 was traded. Let's see. So pick 5, according to Walter Football, is worth 1,700 points. And Christopher Posdol, I probably just butchered your last name. Are you sure it's the 17th? The 17th is the last day for NFL teams to bring in, according to Tracy in the NFL.com website. The 24th is the absolute last day they can meet with players on their turf, wherever they are. So I'm not going to get all deep into this tonight. I can't remember the last time a number 5 pick was traded, but I would say that 11 and 23 is probably worth, moving up into the top 5. I don't think it's too much. I think if anything, maybe the Chargers would want a little bit more, like maybe a conditional or, future, 4th or 5th or 6th round pick. But we'll just go with this for now because none of the future stuff matters to me right now. So Vikings are on the clock. They're going to draft. And they're going to take J.J. McCarthy. I definitely don't think that they're going to be taking Michael Penix because they can wait. They can wait on Bo Nix. J.J. McCarthy goes number 5. So you got 4 quarterbacks going in the top 5. I think that's crazy to even consider that that's going to happen, but something tells me that they want to beat out the New York Giants. If what we're hearing is true about Daniel Jones, JJ McCarthy becomes a New York Giant next week, Thursday, if the Vikings don't do something about it, which means then the Vikings are going to be left with, absolutely be left with, Penix or Nix. Thanks for your vote of confidence there, Peter. Like I said, if you paid attention, I'm not going to get crazy with it. I don't care about the future. So I'm only trading the 2 picks that are available in the first round. And if you look at the draft calculator, which let me educate you real quick. There's your draft calculator, bud. 23-26 for 1642. 42% increase. So you have to go by value of the picks, not what you're getting in return. You're only moving back, 6 positions? How much more do you think 6 positions is worth? But like I said, there could be future considerations there. Future 4th, 5th, 6th, which add to the value of the trade. But if you'd like, go do some research and go let us know all of the top 5 picks that were traded, over the last couple of years. And let's see what they got in return. And then we'll add it all up and figure it out. So the Giants on the clock, obviously, they could use quite a bit. The Giants had a pretty rough season last year. Signing Daniels to that 4-year deal just still boggles my mind. Like, what were they thinking? I don't think that the Giants were really ready to give up on Daniels, but if they are, they are. Clearly, the Giants are not going to grab. I mean, I can't imagine that they're going to take Bo Nix or Penix at 6. Not with those receivers sitting there. There's just no way. They can get through this season with Jones. Grab a quarterback next year if that's what they would like to do. Top picks right now for me for the Giants is, first time I believe was Rome Odunze. Second time was Joe Alt. Third time I'm coming right back to Rome Odunze. I think that the Giants take the first wide receiver off the board. Or they could take a corner, but I still think Quinton Mitchell and Terrion Arnold, even though as good as they are, I don't know if they're top 6 worthy. So do the Giants back up a little bit, maybe add some draft capital? They could. I just don't know who they would be trade bait with right now. I'd have to put some more research into it for next week, Wednesday, like I am, to see, who these trade candidates really are. It's a topic that we've talked about here a couple of times that, where we're putting the work in to try to figure out what makes sense with these players or with these teams and where these players belong. So would the Giants trade all the way back with Arizona? I doubt it. Arizona has a ton of picks already. Do they trade back with Chicago? Does Chicago try to move up, and grab Rome Odunze for Caleb Williams? No, that could be. I mean, right now, picking at number 9, Chicago has, 1, 2, 3. They got 4 players in front of them, right? Including their own pick at 9. So if you had Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, Rome Odunze, and Brock Bowers on the board, I think you're pretty comfortable staying at 9. But at the same token, they know that Rome Odunze is gone. He's got to be gone. The Titans might take an offensive lineman. The Falcons could go Terrion Arnold, Dallas Turner. So there's still going to be the potential to have a top wide receiver to choose from. And Joe Alt could potentially still be there. Could is the question. Could still be there. So it's possible that the Bears try to move up, but then again, having 2 top 10 picks, I think would be silly to try to move up even further. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give Rome Odunze to the Giants. Let me just double check my paperwork here. I'm not even really showing where they're going to need an offensive lineman like Joe Alt right now. I did have them taking Joe Alt, though. And with the Vikings moving up, I feel like the Giants would have been a good trade partner with the Vikings back at 13. And then you have the Jets. Do the Jets want to grab somebody for Aaron Rodgers and ensure that they get a top wide receiver like Rome Odunze or Brock Bowers? That's a potential. That is a big potential. I don't think the Lions are trade candidates. let's see. My notes on the Giants are the Giants are lacking a true number 2 corner. Obviously, they can keep up with Deonte Banks, who they added last year. The Giants were active in free agency addressing the O-line, though, and they have a solid tight end in Darren Waller. So the fact that they addressed O-line pretty heavy in free agency is the reason why I'm thinking that they might pass on an offensive lineman this early, but definitely not in the second round. The Giants do have options to trade back. Like I just mentioned, it does make sense if they can find a trade partner with a pick probably in the top 15, such as the Vikings did have. Offensive line does need a little bit of help here. Joe Alt makes some sense. But for this draft, I'm going to go ahead and stick with Jones is going to stick around, and they take Rome Odunze. Next up on the Titans, obviously the Titans really could use Joe Alt big time or Troy Fontenot. They drafted Peter Skoronski last season, and I feel like the Titans are still pretty far away from having a solid offensive lineman or offensive line room. I think that they would probably go O-line, then wide receiver, and then probably corner. I think that they're looking to add some insurance here in the wide receiver room, though, because Hopkins is aging big time. They just added Snead and Awuzie, though. So you know what? Corner's off the board for them. So Joe Alt, I think, makes a lot of sense. He's still on the board. And wide receiver. So I think it's going to be wide receiver, Malik Neighbors. It would either be Malik or Rome Odunze at this point. You know, with them having, another early pick. What's happening, Demigod? With them having another early pick, I think that they wait till the second round to address the offensive line potentially. Braylon, to your point there, Giants need O-line help. Yeah, they did, but they were pretty active in free agency. Let's see who they picked up in free agency here. Let's see. They added So they added Jermaine Illuminor and John Runyon, which are now starters from Las Vegas and then from Green Bay. So right guard, right tackle. They added Aaron Stinney, left guard. He's now a starter. So they added 3 starters. He was from Tampa Bay. And then their left tackle, Andrew Thomas, is pretty solid. They added a backup center, Austin Schlottman from Minnesota. And then they're pretty stacked behind that. They added Matt Nelson from Detroit. He's their third right tackle backup. They've got Jalen Mayfield, Jimmy Morrissey, Joshua Azudu, Yadni Kajusti, Joshua Miles. I mean, they've got probably one of the most stacked offensive lines I've seen. They literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They have 14 offensive linemen right now. 14. That's completely crazy to me. Most teams usually keep about 10 offensive linemen total. Maybe 11. Maybe. So I think they're solid to be able to pass on an O lineman in the first round, I think is the point. In the first round. They're going to add a receiver because of the age of Hopkins. So, neighbors, see you later. Falcons. Look, I think Falcons go edge rusher here or defensive line. I don't know if Joe Alt is tempting enough. I mean, the fact that Joe Alt's still on the board is kind of crazy with all the quarterbacks going that early. So why you might see some moves with some trades. So Falcons added a couple wide receivers and Kirk Cousins in free agency. They last year, obviously, they upgraded the running back and the tight end position in 2021. They definitely have one of the better offensive lines in the league. And that's why I felt like they would focus on defense first. They definitely need an upgraded quarterback. I mean, obviously, Okuda's gone now. And they need help in the linebacker room, which is a bit early for linebacker. So my top picks for the Falcons: cornerback, defensive lineman, linebacker. Second time I had them taking Quinion Mitchell. Third time I had them taking Dallas Turner. So, it's a good take there. Demigod says, do you see the Falcons being more of a threat than a team like the Eagles and the Packers? Falcons could be a threat. It all depends on how well Kirk comes back. I mean, he's got to come back off this ACL. You know, we'll see how he comes back. All right, let's see here. I think it's too early to take. I mean, I guess it's never too early. All right, I think the Falcons go ahead and take the best corner off the board here. I think they really want edge. But they've got an early second round pick. They're going to be able to grab another edge rusher for sure in the second round early. And they could trade back. Falcons could be big time trade partners right now. With the fact that, you know, they've got everybody on the board at number 8. I mean, why wouldn't you want to trade back, 4 to 8 spots? So we're going to go Falcons with cornerback. Be Quinion Mitchell, first one off the board. Bears, obviously, I thought that they were going to take a wide receiver. And Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors are off the board here. So I think that we've got an opportunity to see the Bears maybe try to trade back. Why not? There's not another wide receiver that I think that you're really going to want to take that early other than Brian Thomas Jr. Maybe they go with a speedster. Maybe they really reach. They take Adonai Mitchell. I don't know how wise that would be, but he's 6'4", 196, and the dude is quick. Try to spread the field on the divisional opponents like the Lions that struggle with cornerbacks. That could be an interesting option for Caleb Williams. So as far as the Bears and what they need, wide receiver obviously is a top pick. Tight end is another top pick. Interesting here. So the Bears stacked up the defense and went hard in free agency once again. Obviously, they added a safety, a center, multiple offensive linemen, and a receiver in Keenan Allen. So they might be good on wide receiver for now. And I feel like the Bears would want to ensure the safety of their new quarterback by taking Joe Alt. If Joe Alt is seriously there, I think it would be extremely wise. Let me just look up their depth chart real quick. I mean, even if they've already have a good left tackle, I don't even know who their left tackle is right now. Braxton Jones. And Braxton Jones, solid grade last year. Only gave up 2 hits, 2 sacks, 9 penalties, though. 32 pressures allowed. Graded out in the high 60s. I don't know what his contract is. So that's all the work that I'm doing for next week to try to really boil it all down. He signed a 4-year, $3.95 million contract. Yeah, let's see. When did he sign it? So he will be a free agent after the 2025 season. So you know what? I think that the Bears would be wise here to protect Caleb Williams, and they can shuffle their offensive line around. Joe Alt becomes a Bear, or the Bears do something crazy and reach and take Adonai Mitchell. But we'll go Joe Alt. Can't pass on a generational talent like that. Okay, Jets are up next. It's lining up for them to grab Brock Bowers. Aaron Rodgers loves tight ends. I don't know if you guys saw my little post the other day, but Aaron Rodgers he said something like he thought that the ACL was going to be a career ender. And I'm like, nah, bud. The career ender is Kirby Joseph. That's your career ender. He's the one that threw you out of the NFC North, and you really haven't played but a couple of downs since. So when you don't come back this year fully healthy and you have to exit and retire, you can thank Kirby Joseph for ending your career. Sorry, had to go there. So I think Brock Bowers ends up going to the Jets without a doubt. I mean, they could use a wide receiver. They could use a strong safety. Brock Bowers is the guy. All right, so now we're back to the Chargers. They took over the Vikings pick. Let me get to my Chargers notes real quick. Byron Murphy's still available. Jerzon Newton's available. Latu's available. Some of the better offensive talent as far as offensive linemen is available. I think that the Chargers obviously would have loved to have had Joe Alt. Maybe they would have moved up with the Bears to make sure that they could grab Joe Alt and the Bears slide back to 11. That would be a super smart move for the Bears. Let's hope they don't make it. And I mean, I've had the Chargers taking Brock Bowers, Marvin Harrison, moving up, obviously, to take Marvin and Joe Alt. And this time, I think it's going to be Troy Fontenot. They address the offensive line. They shuffle it around. They make it happen. Harbaugh wants a running game. He wants the ground and pound. He wants his trenches to be solid. And he sticks with the plan. Broncos clearly need a quarterback. Bo Nix, Michael Penix, they're available towards the end. But the Broncos do not have a second-round pick, which means that they do not have any room to gamble in this draft. If they want a quarterback in this draft, they will have to take that quarterback right now. It is way too early, way too early to grab Bo Nix or Michael Penix, given the fact that you have some teams that are coming up here that potentially really don't need quarterbacks. So the Bengals don't need a quarterback. The Jags don't need a quarterback. The Seahawks don't need a quarterback. Pretty much anyone from 16 16 on really doesn't need a quarterback. You could make an argument for the Raiders, the Saints. Well, the Saints got Carr. You could make an argument for the Raiders and the Colts. What's the likelihood that Penix and Bo Nix go that early? Doubtful. So with that being said, I'm back to where I was the last week. The Broncos do the unthinkable and they trade back. But is it going to be with the Lions this time? Or is it going to be with another team that's looking to make a big impact in this game? And I think that big impact player, it could be the Chargers. So they have pick 23. What would it cost for them to move up to 12? It would probably cost them a second round pick next year, or a second next year and, 23 this year. And maybe a later round pick. I don't know what every pick that they have. We could take a look. But if they were to trade back with, whoops. All right. Yep. If they were to trade back with Chargers at 23. 23 for 12. And next year's second. And probably we'll go 110. That way the Broncos get an extra pick out of the deal too. So we're going to say that the Chargers then move back up and they pick back to back. We've seen that happen last year with the Houston Texans. The Chargers gained a pick, and that's where, somebody's point earlier. There's could have been future considerations. I just didn't want to go deep off into it because I don't care about next year's draft right now. So for the Chargers, they definitely need someone on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think that they want to see, Byron Murphy, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Jerzon Newton, any of these guys not be there for them. So they make the wise move and they move up. And let me go back to my notes here real quick. I think that Byron Murphy is probably the guy that's going to be high on their list, or Jerzon Newton. I think Byron Murphy is better than Jerzon Newton. I think Byron Murphy is going to be an absolute animal. He's just got short arms. The one thing that I don't like. But I think that they go offense, defense. They could have taken an offensive lineman there, which, they went defense 2 in a row, they already took offensive lineman before, but they could have went offensive lineman again and just completely locked it up. All right, so Raiders are next, and I think this one's pretty simple. I mean, they could have went wide receiver if Malik Neighbors was there. It's too early to take Peyton Wilson. Jared Verse is obviously a big time option for anybody, but they really need some offensive line help too. And I think that's where we're going to go, because offensive linemen are going to start flying off this board. But then again, they already added Wilkins, didn't they? So D-line should be good. We're going to go tackle. That's going to be moved to guard, Talis Fuaga. So the Saints will be needing a strong safety at some point. I think that Cooper DeJean is probably the most intriguing prospect that could be moved to safety. With his size and his playing ability, I do believe that they're going to grab a safety at some point, probably second round. There should be plenty of safeties available in the second and not have to convert Cooper. But I think whoever grabs Cooper is going to want to convert him either way. Upgrading the left guard position, I think, is high on their list. And taking a tackle to switch over to guard is kind of the mantra here in the first rounds. There's a lot of tackles. There's just not a whole lot of guards that have the arm length. They just added Chase Young to the defensive line on a 1-year deal. So adding an edge rusher also makes a lot of sense here because, Chase is only there on a 1-year deal. Now, if Chase works out and he takes a favorable contract next season, then you wouldn't need an edge rusher. But wouldn't you rather be prepared? I think you would. And you've got Dallas Turner sitting right there and Jared Verse. It almost makes sense to just go ahead and pull the trigger on one of those guys. And let's see here. They do need some offensive line help. They need guard help badly. We're going to go. I can't believe I'm going to do this. Passing up on all these defensive guys right now. I think this would be absolutely nuts, but we're going to go Fashanu. Saints are smart. They take care of the line. All right, Colts, we know that they need safety big time. They need a corner big time. I think that the Colts could have the first opportunity to select Cooper DeJean here, someone that is a two-way player. It addresses a big need. I mean, you still have Terry and Arnold on the board, which is anyone that has an opportunity to grab Arnold. This is where the Lions could do some damage. Right now, this is where the Lions need to be. Do they get an opportunity to trade with the Colts? That's the question. Are the Colts willing to move off of 15, to move all the way back to 29? The Seahawks won't. Jags, potentially. But do they want to get ahead of LA? Do we want to get ahead of the Packers and the Cowboys? I would say that would be wise. So this is where I think Brad Holmes makes his move. Somewhere at 15 or 17. And you still have the option with the Saints too. I mean, there's relationships there still. Relationships that could definitely be utilized, pressed upon to try to get a deal done. But did the Colts feel confident that at picking at 29 and adding an extra pick in, next year's draft is worth it? I don't see Brad Holmes giving up multiple draft picks to move up. I really don't. I really, really don't. And I quite honestly don't know if Brad Holmes is going to move up, given the fact that he probably can get Darius Robinson or Marshawn Nealand at 29. He probably could get Kool-Aid McKinstry at 29. But gambling and not having the opportunity to grab one of those guys might be too risky. And with the fact that the Colts could use a wide receiver, and you could have a shot at Brian Thomas, you could have a shot at Adonai Mitchell. At 29, you could still have a shot at TJ Tampa, Braden Fisk. I mean, there's plenty of options for the Colts that maybe don't fit the Lions. And I'd probably have to go back and do what I've been doing this week, which is look at their top 30 visits to see what makes the most sense for them in the first round. I'm going to go ahead and make the trade. So Colts are going to be trading with the Detroit Lions at 15. And they're going to give up pick 29 for pick 15. The question is, does Brad Holmes give up any more 2024 draft capital? And we did this the other day. I'll pull it back up on the screen. Hold on here. All right, so we did this the other day. So you got pick 15 for pick 29. And you're probably going to have to give up your future second in 2025, which is probably going to be what? Let's just say 58, to be fair. I don't think that's going to be enough. I think that you're also going to have to give up a 2026 or even a 2023 fourth. So if we were to give up, let's say 115, I think that gets it done. So if you give up a second and a fourth in 2025, that would be great. You could potentially give up a second and a third and call it 85, and that would get it done. Well, for purposes of this draft, I'm going to give up next year's second and Philly's fourth and call it a day. So Lions move up to 15. Oh, hey. And the question is, who do we take? We got the pick of the litter right now. You've got Terry and Arnold. You've got Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Drazan Newton, Cooper DeJean, Layatu Latu, J.C. Latham, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Jackson Powers Johnson. You've got a couple of wide receivers. I think wide receivers off the board, number one. I think that this is a cornerback, a defensive end, or an offensive lineman, I think is now off the board because too many of them have been taken. I'm going to go back to where I was last week. I think the Dallas Turner and Jared Verse are probably the two best edge rushers in this draft. I think that Jared Verse is an instant game changer. I think that Dallas Turner still needs some big time work with his hands. His hands are just not vicious enough. They're not poppy enough. He's too slow to punch. And he's too slow to get off the punch. So I think that Verse would make the biggest impact right away. But then you have Terry and Arnold sitting there. We know that last year our biggest Achilles heel was our cornerbacks and our DBs. The fact that we added DJ Reader and the fact that the Lions have brought in over 13 defensive backs, more than any other positional group, tells me one of two things. They're either taking a DB early or often. That's what it's telling me. Early or often. And if it's often, that means that it's going to be your second pick and it could be your third, fourth, or fifth pick of the draft. They're probably going to add two since they brought in corners and safeties. I think it makes more sense to grab an edge. I really do. I just don't think that it's wise to pass on Terry and Arnold. I really don't. Let's compare them real quick. So Terry and Arnold, 2 seasons at Alabama as a starter. Well, he didn't start every game in 2022. Passer rating of 50.7. I mean, he made a huge jump in his production and value year over year. Definitely plays the corner, plays minor amount of time in the slot. Run defense grade. See, this is what the Lions like to see. Run defense. They want the corners. They want the DBs to be able to be just as good in run defense as they are on the outside. His man coverage grade is a 61.2. That part concerns me a little bit. Is he more of a zone kind of guy? Probably. Kool-Aid. He's better in man coverage. He's still really good in run defense. His overall coverage grade is pretty high. I think that Kool-Aid is probably the better, sharper, more consistent corner in this draft. Maybe Terry and Arnold was the decoy, right? The guy that the Lions are trying to make everybody believe they're going up to get, which would be a trade with the Colts or somebody up there in the top, 12, 15, 17, somewhere in there. could have been a decoy pick. I mean, you've noticed how they haven't brought in Jared Verse yet, right? So, with that being said, Lions take best edge available right now at 15 for today. It's Jared Verse. Next week, Wednesday, you'll find out Wednesday. All right, big trade off the board. Let's get this moving here. So, Seahawks. Jackson Powers Johnson has been the mock for me the entire time, or a large part of the time. In just about every one of these, I've put Jackson Powers Johnson to them. I just don't see who else they'd really want to take right now. They're in a very minor rebuild. They've got Geno Smith, needs a center. He needs someone that can play center guard. That offensive line is really in shambles. A lot of free agency departures. I think the Jackson Powers just makes the most sense. I really do. I don't know why these things keep popping off the screen. Let me put it back. So I'm going to roll with Jackson Powers. I mean, Dallas Turner, Terry. I mean, all these guys. They're very intriguing. Shoot, Seahawks could trade back right now. Just take a look at my notes real quick, then we'll make the pick. They could use an edge. They really could. All right. I'll get more in depth on it next week. So for this week, I'm still going to stick with, you know what? I'm going to go Dallas Turner. I'm going to go edge. I think at pick 45 or 46, wherever they are in the second round, they could add another big time playmaker. No, I'm going Jackson Powers. They can still get an edge rusher in the second. All right, Jags. Jacksonville tackled all their offensive line holes in free agency. They replaced Ridley with Gabe Davis. They kept pass rusher Josh Allen, obviously was huge. They added Amik Armstead to the D-line. They signed free agent Ronald Darby as their starting right corner. Let's see. They added Savage to the strong safety position in free agency. All great moves, man. Jags really stepped up. Obviously, they need a corner. I had Nate Wiggins going in my first one, Terry and Arnold in the second one, and he's still on the board. So Terry and Arnold goes to Jags. Bengals, again, pretty simple. They need line help. Pick one, right? They could go offensive line. They could go defensive line right here. I think what it boils down to is best available. And right now, best available is Jerzon Newton. And he's now a Bengal. The LA Rams. Again, this one would have been a perfect fit for Jerzon Newton because obviously they lost Aaron Donald. They also need offensive line help. They could use an edge rusher. So they have the pick of the litter right now. They want J.C. Latham, Dallas Turner, or Latu. I think those are all great options. I think Tyler Guyton and Graham Barton are also intriguing picks for the offensive line. And, I mean, offense-wise, Stafford has enough weapons, I think, right now. I don't think that they're done adding weapons later on in this draft. But let's just keep it simple. I think that Dallas Turner probably makes the most sense. Rams could potentially find a interior defensive lineman a little bit later in the draft, but you're not going to find a good edge rusher. You could probably also move inside just a little bit. Oh goodness, where are they at? Let me just look at something real quick. Braden Fisk. I do not think he's going to be available in the second round, but Chris Jenkins will be available for them. Brandon Dorlus, Trevonde Sweat, they'll all be available in the second round. Okay. Dallas Turner it is. Becomes a Ram. Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh needs offensive line help like nobody else's business. I think that they really want to protect these quarterbacks that they just brought in, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Last year's draft pick, Broderick Jones, had an average season at best at right tackle. I think that it would be wise to add another tackle to the mix that can be moved around a little bit. There's still a couple of good prospects available. J.C. Latham, Amarius Mims, both great options. Tyler Guyton's still there. It's more who projects better, at the position, and I think that that's Latham right now. Latham is more of the right tackle, so he could fit in at right guard a little bit easier. He's got some right guard experience. And I think that's where we're going to roll with. We'll roll with Latham. The Dolphins. So the Dolphins definitely need offensive line help too. It's going to be too easy to want to grab, Nate Wiggins here or Kool-Aid McKinstry. I mean, of course, having one of those guys on your team is going to be exciting. But offensive line help is what's going to keep their quarterback safe. You've got Graham Barton, solid dude. Amarius Mims could use some help. He's got some work to do, especially in the zone blocking schemes. And he hasn't had a ton of snaps. He really hasn't. That concerns me. On average, 300 snaps a season. That concerns me. For that reason, I think that they would pass on Amarius Mims and they would shoot down to Graham Barton. Graham Barton, on average, 800 snaps a season. Had some injury issues in 2023, but those injury issues are gone. So Graham Barton becomes a Dolphin. Eagles. Eagles really need an edge rusher. They lost Reddick. And looking for an edge rusher, I think is one of a few left here that make the most sense to go in the first round. I'm not big on Latu because of the neck injury. So he sounds like a perfect fit for the Eagles. High risk, high reward here. Still rebuilding that defense. They've added a lot of big time defensive players over the years. The other potential is the Eagles probably trade out of this pick. Maybe they back down a little bit, try to add some more draft capital. Let's see. Right now, they got 50 and 53 after this. They got some pretty early picks. They do need a corner, though. All right, I think Eagles wisen up here. Darius Slay is not getting any younger, and I understand Latu is an intriguing option, but you only get one opportunity to grab somebody like a Kool-Aid McKinstry, and he's going to learn under Darius Slay. McKinstry becomes an Eagle. That's really going to help that defense. Now we're back to pick 23, where the Broncos were able to move back, grab some draft capital, and they're going to grab their quarterback. They're not even going to hesitate. So it's either Bo Nix or Michael Penix. And I think that it's going to be Penix that ends up being a Bronco. Next up, you got the Cowboys. Definitely need some right tackle help. Jerry Jones, he's not the smartest when it comes to drafting, in my opinion. And until the deal is done with Dak, it appears that Dak is potentially on his last leg as a Cowboy, if he even suits up this year with all of his legal trouble. I haven't paid attention to it lately, so I don't know if he's still in any legal trouble. But reports have surfaced that CeeDee Lamb could potentially be a holdout. I haven't seen any news on CeeDee Lamb getting a new deal, so please tell me. Finally found the living chat. What does that mean, Better the Hunt? Have you disappeared for a while? Or the live chat? Yeah, I'm worrying. I'm doing the best I can, Donovan. I mean, I try to do it the right way. I don't want to just throw a bunch of crap out there. So with the holdout with CeeDee Lamb, I think that you could add Brian Thomas here. Then Tampa Bay or Green Bay, sorry. Green Bay's up next. They could use some offensive line. I mean, everybody could use offensive line help this year. And I think Tyler Guyton ends up a Packer. I like Amarius Mims there too, but I just don't like the fact that Amarius Mims is. Oh, I got you. Which other channel? Is this on the other channel too? It shouldn't be. I must have accidentally tapped it. Tampa Bay definitely needs an edge rusher, defensive line help. They could really use a corner. If Nate Wiggins is seriously still there, which I doubt this is going to happen next week, but I think that they grab Nate Wiggins. You can't pass on a corner when they just lost Carlton. Arizona Cardinals, again, big time trade bait for them to move up, move down, move wherever they want. They got a ton of picks. They're going to be one of the funnest teams to watch this draft. I'm going to be secretly watching the Cardinals as a fan because I'm excited when anyone has that many picks that they're just going to probably go bonkers moving all over the place. I could be wrong, but I just have a feeling the Cardinals are going to be just lighting up the board on Thursday and Friday night. The Cardinals aren't afraid to do something here. I think that they need to fix their 30th ranked D-line first. And you can't do that with any of these guys that are, in front of them right now that are top of the board. You could do it with Latu. I mean, do they take a chance on Latu? They could. They absolutely could. They could reach, and we could see this is where Darius Robinson or Marshawn Nealand or Chop Robinson end up. And I haven't even really, I've just been doing best player available based on PFF. This isn't like my board. So my board's totally different. I could see the Cardinals ending up with Chris Braswell here or Braden Fisk. It depends on how well they feel Braden Fisk is going to be able to project with shorter arms. But we're going to go best player available per PFF, and that's going to be Latu to the Cardinals. So I just threw you guys a secret. My board's different. Next week is different. Bills 28. I think this one's pretty simple. They need pass rusher help badly. And we're going to stick with that. But the next pass rusher on the list is going to be Chris Braswell. And now you got the Colts traded with the Lions. And the Colts still need some safety help. And he's still there. So Cooper DeJean is still there. You still had an opportunity to grab TJ Tampa. Obviously, Wiggins disappeared. So Cooper DeJean goes to the Colts. Baltimore. Where are we at? Baltimore. Definitely could use a receiver or a tackle. Look, Lamar Jackson is going to want to get this ball out and downfield. Adonai Mitchell becomes a Raven. Adds more speed to that already deadly offense. San Francisco. I don't really care what they do. I just can't wait to kick them in the teeth this year. Offensive line would probably be very helpful. Edge, corner, possibly round 2 or 3. They might take a chance here on Amarius Mims. They need offensive line help like it's nobody's business. But they really need a corner. I think TJ Tampa disappears here, goes to San Francisco. Kansas City Chiefs definitely need offensive line help. Rashee Rice is in some trouble. I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't know if they replace him immediately. He'll probably get some sort of an NFL suspension. I can only imagine. But Ladd McConkey is still on the board. They do need a field spreader. Let's just go ahead and give them Ladd McConkey. So round 2, this is where we're going to speed up. Back to the Panthers here. So the Panthers, oops. Panthers could use a little bit of everything. But I think that center and guard offensive line is probably the most important, with Zach Frazier still sitting there. Makes perfect sense. Patriots. So we've got Jaden Daniels. He needs somebody to throw to. Edge tackle. Marius Mims. I think this is where the Patriots add Marius Mims. They need to protect Jaden Daniels. Cardinals back on the clock already. Jeez, oh Pete. So they've got Marvin Harrison. They've got Latu. Guard, center, defensive line. Wide receiver, corner. Man. Yeah, I think Troy Franklin is probably the option here, but why wouldn't you want to go ahead and add a Chop Robinson, a Darius Robinson, an Enos Rakestraw? They've got Latu, so they might not double down here, or they could double down because they're thinking of an insurance policy in case Latu's neck becomes a problem. But guard or center is obviously a very intriguing option. Jordan Morgan, one of the better tackles in this draft. Kingsley Suma or Suamataya is one of the better tackles that can project down to a guard. So they might give us a break and go ahead and take Kingsley. Washington on the clock. Obviously, they still need a lot of help, but they've got another pick at 40. Lions don't pick till 61. Could the Lions move up twice? Potentially. They potentially could. How are they going to get it done, though? And would they really want to give up this much draft capital 2 times in a row? Doubtful. But they're going to miss out on the bulk of the draft here. There's a lot of really good players. But I would look for Washington and the Lions to potentially make a trade at pick 40. I think that's a pretty good opportunity. All right, so Washington at pick 36, right? Pick 36. Who do we have? They need a receiver. Edge, offensive line, tight end, quarterback. We'll go Braden Fisk here. I think we'll go Braden Fisk here. If they're going to move him to edge, nah. They're going to go Chop Robinson. Washington takes Chop Robinson. I mean, he's a bona fide edge rusher. Braden Fisk is too much of a defensive lineman. The Chargers are up next, and Chargers already got Byron Murphy and Troy Fontenot. So this next pick, I mean, they've already settled both offense and defensive line. So they're probably going to be looking for a wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, or corner, like it says here. But I think it's going to be wide receiver or tight end. Troy Franklin, one of the bigger wide receivers in this group, pretty good speed, good hands. I think that he has a real potential to go early in this draft. Roman Wilson is another one. Obviously, Harbaugh knows him well. So this is what I'm going to do. If Harbaugh really believes in his Michigan players, this is where Roman Wilson becomes a Charger if the opportunity presents itself and Roman is not taken earlier. I think that this is where he becomes a Charger and he rejoins Harbaugh. That might be the only player, the only Michigan player that could be drafted by the Chargers this year. And I really believe that. I don't think that these Michigan players really have a chance to be drafted by Harbaugh. Something is just a little off-putting there about Harbaugh and the way he conducts himself. But we'll see. Well, I think it'd be real interesting if he drafts a lot of Michigan players, but don't see it happening. Titans on the clock. I mean, they've kind of shed a lot of talent this year. They could really use some help. And we've already given them offensive line, right? It's the one thing I wish this would tell me who I already gave them in the first round. I gave them wide receiver, Neighbors. That's right. So we're probably going to go defense on this pick here. They need edge or DB. And Enos Rakestraw probably makes the most sense, or Darius Robinson. You could see a run on edge rushers right now. I think that it would probably make a lot more sense for them to grab an edge rusher. It's going to be too hard to pass on Darius. Panthers on the clock. We've already given them who? We gave them Zach Frazier, so they're good on offensive line for the moment. They need a linebacker. Peyton Wilson goes to the Panthers at from 27 to 39. Washington back in the clock. Again, if the Lions do not trade up, I could see the Lions trading back. I don't know if they're going to trade as far back as 40. They could trade back to 36 with Washington and allow Washington to move up. So that way Washington would have 29, Lions would have 26, and then potentially the Lions could end up having 40, or they could add 67 in a trade back situation. Even 78 would be great. So I would look for the Lions to try to make a trade with Washington if it's a trade back scenario. So Washington, I've already given them Chop Robinson and Drake May. So let's look at tight end, offensive line, and DB. I think DB makes a lot of sense right now. Tight end, Jatavion Sanders. Dude's just huge. 6'4", 243. It gives May an opportunity to chuck the ball. You got to go with him. I'd rather see him go there than to the Packers or something like that. All right, so Green Bay's up, and Green Bay is kind of a tough one to figure out. Like, I'm not real sure what they're looking for yet in the second round. But if they took offensive line in the first round, they would probably go defensive line in the second round. And let's just say they take a chance on Braden Fisk. Texans. If we're going to go best player available and they need a wide receiver, defensive line, or linebacker, I think that they're probably going to go with Enos Rakestraw and take a corner. Falcons. Man, this draft is taking forever. They got their corner. Defensive line. Rook Aurora could end up there. Chris Jenkins could slide up there if they're high on Chris Jenkins. I think Rook is going to be gone right here. Raiders could still use some help, obviously, with Crosby. I can't remember who they added now. In free agency. All right. Well. Let's go receiver Troy Franklin. All right. So Saints up next. Dallas Turner, Talis Fuaga. Shanu. Defensive line, Adisa Isaac. So I think they had their edge rusher right there at the Saints. Yeah, still live. This one's taken forever, man. It's taken forever. I don't think I'm going to be able to get through all of them, to be honest with you. I just wanted to get the Lions picks done, so I'm just trying to get to 61. But really, I would need to get to 73, so it's taking a minute. Colts back on the boards. They got their DB. They're going to be adding a wide receiver here. Let's see. Ricky Purcell, Jermaine Burton, probably one of the better wide receivers still on the board. New York. So the Giants at 6, we gave them Roma Dunze, so they're solid at wide receiver right now. They really have the pick of the litter. Like, what makes the most sense? Tyler Nubin really shouldn't be on this board. I don't think that they need a safety, though. Maybe they take a chance on Mike Sainristil. He sounds like a New York kind of guy to me. So we're going to give New York Giants Mike Sainristil. They could use a DB. Bengals got their defensive lineman. They could still use a tackle. Jordan Morgan is gone. Or I'm sorry, the Jaguars. But the Bengals, they got their defensive line. They could still use offensive lineman or tight end. But Jatavion Sanders is gone. And yeah, they're not going to double dip. They don't really need. Man, Xavier Worthy to the Bengals. Wouldn't that be interesting? with him and Jamar Chase. That could be a crazy duo. Let's go Keon Coleman to the Bengals here. I'm not so sure that they really want to add a wide receiver, but something tells me that if you don't have a tight end, you can always find a place for another playmaker. Otherwise, they would be adding a tackle. And then all the tackles are just about gone, at this point. You've got some guards that are left, but most of the tackles are gone. You still got Braylon Trice on the board, edge rusher, but I'm going to go Keon Coleman here to the Bengals. Little insurance policy behind Chase. Could always have room for another wide receiver. Eagles, they got their cornerback early in the draft. At this point, they could use a linebacker. A DB is already solid for them. Tight end, there's no tight ends that I would take right here. I mean, you could add Eric All, this early. Theo Johnson, I still think is the best tight end in this draft. So I think adding a tight end this early that was not Jatavion Sanders or Brock Bowers probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Doesn't mean it won't be done. But let's go wide receiver here for the Eagles. This could be a Xavier Legette kind of moment. Ricky Pearsall, he's interesting, right? 6'1", 192 has got good size. I don't know enough about Jalen Polk. Quite honestly, I don't know much about him at all. Haven't watched any tape on him. I do like Devontae Walker as probably one of the better wide receivers in this draft. And he projects more to me like an Eagle for some reason. I'm not real sure why he does, but Xavier Legette does too. So we're going to go Xavier Legette becomes an Eagle. Pittsburgh, they got their tackle. They could still use a center. They could definitely use a wide receiver and a corner. Next best corner on the list right now. It's a ways down. Andrew Phillips. He's actually, I don't know why he's so far down. But wide receiver, I think that this is where they add their wide receiver. It would be smart to get them all early in the second round. They're not going to last. You still got Kyrie in there too, but he could be a safety at the next level. Let's say Pittsburgh tries to add some speed. And they go with Xavier Worthy. Rams, they got their defensive linemen. They could use just about everybody at this point. I don't see them taking a quarterback. Really add Bo Nix right now behind Matt Stafford. They could. I think that would be a wasted pick. So that's why I don't think that they will. But they do need a linebacker, and they do need potentially another edge rusher. Potentially. Let's see. Edgerrin Cooper, man. I do like him. Edgerrin Cooper goes to the Rams. Eagles back on the board, man. The Eagles are going to be one of those teams, like I said, when you try to find trade partners, they have these picks that are so close together. And those are the trade partners that I would be looking for if I were the Lions, where I can really take advantage of the fact they got picks that are close together where they might feel more comfortable getting out of one. So the Eagles, they've added their wide receiver. They got their cornerback of the future. They still need a linebacker, or it could just be a smaller edge rusher, someone that they could stand up if they needed to. But you got Junior Colson sitting here. Probably one of the better linebackers in this draft. He's got good size, 6'3", 247. I think he's a second round pick all day. He becomes an Eagle. Yeah, I jumped Edgerrin over Colson, but I think they go back to back right there. I think that makes a lot of sense. Probably won't happen, but to me, it just makes a lot of sense. The good old Brownies. So Brownies are finally making a pick here. And they could use just about everything, but defensive line sticks out right now. It's still early enough in this draft where you can get, Chris Jenkins. I think that's a solid pick for defensive line. I mean, linebackers, the two best linebackers just came off the board. You got Brandon Dorlus sitting here. You got Trevonde Sweat. So it depends on what defense they're going to try to run this year. Quite honestly, I don't even know what they run. I have not looked. Let me look real quick, because that would make sense on whether they want Trevonde Sweat, who's a true nose tackle. So they do run a 3-4. Could be early for Trevonde Sweat. Could be early because of all of his legal troubles. But maybe not. Maybe the Browns, how they like guys in trouble. So Trevonde Sweat becomes a Brown way early. We'll see what happens with that whole mess. Miami Dolphins. I forgot who they grabbed already. Graham Barton. So they got their tackle. And they need a tight end. They still need defensive line. So defensive line, who do we have available? You got Marshawn Nealand. You got Chris Jenkins. Brandon Dorlus. Braylon Trice. Austin Booker. I forgot Blake Fisher was still available. Max Melton. So defensive line, I mean, it's going to be tough finding someone better than Chris Jenkins to slide in and do the job. So Chris Jenkins, you're going to see some Michigan players flying here in the second round. That's 3 or 4 of them already. Cowboys on the clock. Again, I don't care if they get a sack of dog poop for Christmas or for a draft pick. But I got to be honest with it. So Brian Thomas Jr., I gave him with, the wide receiver in the first round. In the second round, I think it only makes sense to give them the best offensive lineman available, unless they really want to go edge again, which I don't know. I don't see that happening. Corner. I mean, this is a great spot to still find a corner. You got Max Melton sitting out there. He's not too much of a reach. Andrew Phillips. I mean, both those guys are solid. I'm still surprised the Lions haven't brought in Max Melton. Very, very surprised. But we could see, that they make some visits elsewhere. They could use the linebacker, Jeremiah Trotter. Is decent. A little bit short, though, at 6 foot. His high football IQ, though, they pick a long snapper. Could inch him up the board just a little bit. But something tells me good old Jones is going to take a wide receiver here just because. But I already gave him one, so I can't do that. Let's see here. We're just going to go. Kyrie Jackson. They need a corner. He's one of the biggest in the draft. And the dude still can flip and run. All right, Tampa Bay's on the clock. They got a corner in the first round. And they need a linebacker and an edge rusher. So I think the next best edge rusher coming off the board, which is going to be disappointing for the Lions because they're picking in just a few picks. I think it's Marshawn Nealand, man. I think Nealand's going to be gone before the Lions get an opportunity to pick. I really do. And I still got Bo Nix on the board. I don't know how I left him on the board, but we'll give him up here in just a minute. All right, Tampa Bay. running back, tight end, guard, center. Edge. So Jonah Ellis or Marshawn Nealand, I think that they're both gone no matter what. You got Braylon Trice. Let's go Braylon Trice. Might fit them a little bit better. Green Bay looking for offensive line, defensive line, safety help, primarily according to PFF. I've already given them a defensive lineman in Braden Fisk. And I gave them an offensive lineman with Tyler Guyton. They definitely need a safety. Tyler Nubin is now a Green Bay Packer. Texans. Where did I give them? Ernie Enos Rakestraw, that's right. So they could definitely use a linebacker, defensive lineman, or wide receiver, according to PFF. And if they're looking for a wide receiver, now's the time. There's going to be quite a few that are going to be popping off. Devontae Walker, the dude is absolutely fun to watch. I think that he's better than Ricky Purcell. I think that until I know more about Jalen Polk, I've got to go Devontae Walker here. As far as the Bills' next pick, I gave them, who did I give them in the beginning? Chris Braswell. So they got their edge rusher. So they definitely could use wide receiver, tackle, defensive lineman, linebacker, DB. Probably go DB here. DBs are going to start to run thin. And Max Melton is the guy that comes to mind. All right, so the Lions are up. And as far as the Lions go, this is going to be tough for them. They grab their edge rusher at 15, and then they have to wait all the way to 61. And so even 29 to 61 is a long wait. But they got their edge rusher, right? Now they're probably looking for a wide receiver or a safety. Wide receiver or a corner. And there's just not a whole lot available. Devontae Walker would have been a super nice pick right there. Brendan Rice, you'll be able to potentially get him at 73, potentially. But as far as corners go, I mean, if you're really trying to elevate the cornerback room, Andrew Phillips, Renardo Green, still really great options. They just brought in Andrew Phillips the other day. He's only 6 foot 187, but he didn't have a ton of starting experience, apparently. He was a rotational player. So how is that going to help the Lions if he's a rotational player? I really like Renardo Green. Quite honestly, he might be one of the most pro-ready corners in this draft. And I know some of his grades may not look the greatest, but his man coverage grade at 90 is insanity. So, and again, I don't know if they brought him in. I can't remember all the names. I don't think that they did. But I would take Renardo Green over any of these guys that are on the board right now until you get down to Kamal Hayden. So Kamal Hayden, if you guys remember, he was ranked right around 170. And so he's moved up almost 50 spots. There's a reason why I did a video on him. You see a lot in this guy. The Lions also brought in Kalen Carson. So they're obviously looking at opportunities to bring in guys, fifth round, or later if they have to. So back to wide receiver. I don't know if it makes sense right now or not, just because Brendan Rice, you could probably get at the next pick. But do you want to take an opportunity of him, going to the Chiefs? Because I think that the Chiefs are probably one of the teams that are looking at Brendan Rice for sure to add to the squad. So even though I gave them a receiver already, I don't think it stops them from grabbing two. Offense wins right now. The only other option that we'd be looking at would be inside outside lineman, or interior offensive lineman. And again, you can get some of these guys a little bit later. I do like Cooper Beebe. I know that Bono likes him too. I like Cooper's flexibility. I just don't like his arm length. There's really not much left for tackles. I would love to see the Lions be able to add a right tackle. Maybe that is right here with Fisher. Somebody that can really step in and help this team. I think that's the guy. Second round, 61. Lions take Blake Fisher, elevate that offensive line, defensive line first, build in the trenches. That's the Brad Holmes way. Trenches, and then you go outside. So we're going to pass on a corner. We're going to end up taking a corner later in the draft. Maybe they're going to do something, with trades. According to one channel, they're going to be trading for everybody. Won't even have any draft picks left. Ravens are up next. They could still use some help, I think, at corner. I don't think I gave them a corner yet. I gave Madonna Mitchell, so they could still use a corner. And maybe Andrew Phillips or Renardo Green. I would take Renardo Green, but I'll leave him on the board for now. Go best player available according to PFF, Andrew Phillips. Next on the clock, obviously this is not going to go in this direction because a lot of these players are going to be sitting there still. 49ers, edge or corner. Let's see what I gave him in the first round. I gave him corner, so we're going edge. You got Jonah Ellis and Marshawn Nealand. I think that Marshawn Nealand or Austin Booker, even Gabriel Murphy are probably going to go over Jonah Ellis. I know he's a former Lions son. He's got decent tape. I don't think it's great tape. But Marshawn Nealand, man, 6'3", 275. He's like another he's almost like another tweener, someone that can play both, a little bit of defensive line, a little bit of edge rusher. The question is, does he have the speed, to really get it done? I think his tape speaks for itself. Austin Booker. A lot of people are high on Austin Booker. I'm not as high on him. I think he's too lanky. I think he's too tall. He just does not show the strength, in my opinion. San Francisco is a team that likes speed, though. And for that reason, I think Austin Booker could be the guy. He's got a good first step. So KC's up next. In round 2, I had them taking wide receiver or edge. If they took offensive lineman in the first, but in the first round, I gave them a wide receiver, Ladd McConkey. So it could be edge rusher right here. And again, we're talking about Marshawn Nealand. I think that between him and Jonah, one of those two could potentially be a Kansas City Chief. I think that this is where Marshawn Nealand's gone, 64. Panthers on the clock, and almost done. Almost to 73. I don't know why I don't have any notes on the Panthers anymore. I don't know where they went. So I gave them their linebacker. They could pretty much use anybody at this point. Quite honestly, if they want one of the best tight ends in the draft and their next pick, well, at least in this draft is only 65. I don't know what their pick is next, but at least in this draft, Eric All would probably be too early. But depending on where their next pick is, I could see them taking a corner right now, or a tight end right now. Renardo Green. I can't believe he's ranked 91. But we're going to give him their corner. Kamari Lassiter becomes a Panther at pick 65. Arizona, again, back on the clock. Go figure. They've gotten their tackle. They've got their edge guy. And they've got their receiver. They could use a corner. Bernardo Green is gone. So Washington got their quarterback. And they got their edge guy. They got their tight end. Man, could I see them taking a tight end early? No, I gave him a tight end. I'm sorry. Offensive line. Who do we got left? I think we'll go DB here. DBs are going to start to run. We'll go Jerry and Jones. Or Chris Abrams train. Might be a little early, but then again, it could be a little bit too late. Depending on who's available later. So I think we'll give them a tackle here. This Armagaji. Patriots. Almost there. A few more picks. And I'm going to stop at 73. So, and I'll just fill in the rest, I guess. Patriots. I mean, this is a tough one. So they got Jaden Daniels, right? And or at least a quarterback. Whoever, if they're going to take a quarterback at 3, I still don't believe that they are. But then they got their tackle. So really it's wide open for them. You know, who do they want to take? Wide receiver, edge rusher, who's available? Wide receiver, I think, you know, you're going to start to see some guys fly. Are they high on Brendan Rice? Probably. Javon Baker, kind of a burner. 6'1", 208. Dude can run. Edge rushers, I mean, they're few and far between right now, but Jonah Ellis could be a real good fit in Patriot land. Chargers up again. They're having an excellent draft, man. They're going to bang it out. They got Roman Wilson and Troy Fontenot, Byron Murphy. So they've got a tackle, defensive line, wide receiver. I still think that this is, a good spot for them to grab a tight end. Jim Harbaugh really likes tight ends, especially in his offensive system. I think it might be a little too early to grab a running back, but you know what? Blake Corum's sitting there. Does he become a Charger and reunite? Do we get 2 Michigan players to the Chargers? Well, for sake of this draft, we do. New York Giants. We've given them their wide receiver. We've given them their corner. And offensive line's kind of thin. But they could definitely use a guard. And Christian Haynes, best footwork in the game right now. Probably going to be able to help out the Giants, especially with Daniel Jones needing some help staying upright. Cardinals on the clock again. I think it's insanity, that they've got all these picks, man. Fun stuff, right? It's going to be real fun to watch them. Now, I left Bo Nix on the board. I don't know why. Like, I really don't know where he belongs. I don't know who's going to take him. I really don't. But with Kyler Murray, I know he just signed a deal. But do they want some insurance? Do they want somebody that they can kind of build up behind Kyler and maybe use him as trade bait at some point if they just decide, to finally move on? I mean, they've got pretty much new everything in Washington. Could they use Kyler Murray in Washington? Who knows? I doubt it. But they could use a quarterback. They could use somebody that could start right away. I realize that they're taking a quarterback, early at number 2. When I look at Arizona's depth chart, it's really hard to figure out who they need. I mean, they've stacked up well this offseason. They could still use some offensive line help. So we're going to go back to offensive line, Christian Mahogany, tackles. Who do we got? Patrick Paul, Christian Mahogany. Mason McCormick is probably one of the best guards, in my opinion, in this draft. And so is Dominic Pooney. These guys can play all over the place, but Mason McCormick's got probably the best grades. I would love to see him become a Detroit Lion. I really would. Like I would even hate taking him right now because of the fact that I want him to become a Detroit Lion that badly. And Dominic Pooney, he left guard, left tackle, wherever you need him. Incredible pass blocking grades. As far as, height and weight, I mean, they're bigger than some of the tackles in this game, or, he's one of the bigger tackles in this game. So I think that the Cardinals add one of these guys right now, but maybe they take someone a little bit higher in the ranking. But if it were me, I would be taking Mason McCormick. I got to keep it honest right now. Obviously, next week, Wednesday, we'll see how things line up. But yeah, we'll see. Lions grabbed the tackle with their last pick. The Jets, who did they grab? Brock Bowers at 10. That's right. They don't have any picks. So Jets need just about everybody. Defensive line, safety, tackle, wide receiver. Man, Brendan Rice is not going to last this long. I have a feeling he's not going to last this long. But if they still need offensive line help, Patrick Paul, great ranks. Seems like some of these guys later on in the rounds have better grades than some of the guys earlier. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the competition that they go up against. Absolutely, they need something here. Bo Nix, probably Mike P. Probably. If Bo Nix was truly this far into the draft, they could use something behind. They could use something behind Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, they absolutely could. I'm going to leave Bo Nix there just because I think that he would have been gone by now. But they need defensive line help. So for that, I'm going to give them Brandon Dorloose. Shadow Viper, what'd I miss? What'd you say 20 minutes ago? Talking about the Jets. All right, so here we go with the Lions. What do we have on deck for tonight so far? So we have at pick 15, we have Jared Verse. And at pick 61, we have our tackle, Blake Fisher, who can project either side and down to guard. Now, is this where the Lions take their wide receiver? Is there a corner that's still pretty good right now? You got Jerry and Jones, 6 foot, 191. Let's look at his grades for just a second. More of a slot guy. I mean, he did play outside corner in 22 and 21, but he played mostly inside the slot in 23. Really good in man coverage. He has the size to be able to play on the outside. So could he go back to the outside? That's going to be the question. Oh, Donovan, I've gone longer than 3 hours, buddy. I've gone 5-6 hours, man. That's nothing. So yeah, I'm done after this pick anyway. If I just want to pick crap, yeah, I mean, I could just throw them all in there. But I think some of these picks they're probably going to land. So I think corners, like, I think you're kind of screwed right here. I mean, I really do. You know, Chris Abrams drained. I mean, he has great grades, but he's 178 pounds soaking wet. He's too small. Kamal Hayden, I love him. I just don't know if I love him this early. 6'1", 197. Love his grades. His man coverage grade is terrible. He's better in zone, according to PFF. But in 2022, I mean, he's played outside corner his whole career, but last year he did not get a ton of snaps. So that's why I think he's a little bit more of a project that, you know, probably by year 2 or 3 is really going to make a big jump. And that's what you're looking for. Dwight McLaughlin, you know, pretty late, 6'2", 188. Man coverage is pretty good. Definitely plays on the outside. Look at that, 835 snaps in 22. So why didn't he have as many in 23? I think he had some injury issues in 23. But beyond that, he's not a rotational guy. We do know that. So there's going to be corners that we can grab later, I guess, is the argument that I'm trying to make. I do not like anybody just at this point. I think if you don't grab them in the mid 40s, you're going to have to wait until the 4th and 5th round to grab someone you feel comfortable about positional value. If you're looking for wide receiver help, again, I don't know anything about Polk. McMillan doesn't do it for me. Javon Baker I do like, but he doesn't have the height. Brendan Rice obviously has the height, has the body size. I would definitely take him at 73. And I think that's what I'm going to do, because there's really nobody else other than Dominic Pooney, but we already grabbed the tackle, and I don't see the Lions double dipping back-to-back picks with offensive line unless they really don't feel comfortable with the guys that they have right now. And yes, we do need someone behind Zeitler. Yes, we need someone behind Graham Glasgow. They just grabbed or re-signed Coyote Awosika today, which, I mean, his grades were in the low 40s in the postseason, the high 50s during the regular season. He's just not the answer. Maybe it's a time on task thing. I don't know, but he's just not the answer. At linebacker, you have some options here. So Jeremiah Trotter, again, I love the dude's work ethic. I'm glad that he's extremely intelligent, but at 6 foot 230, that's concerning to me. Coverage grade is good. Run defense grade is good. Missed tackle rate way too high. He definitely plays up in the box, you know, so he's not outside. I don't see him overtaking Jack Campbell, obviously. Again, the next linebacker on the list here, 6'2", 239. That's a little bit better. 6'2", 6'3". I'd like to see him north of 240 in weight. And the further we get going down the line here, I think the worse it gets. I think that we could take a linebacker in the draft. I just think it's going to be a little bit later in the draft. There's some pretty intriguing guys a little bit later, which doesn't make any sense because you would think the guys that make you think twice or look twice are the guys that you would want to put up there a little bit further. But tight end. So tight end's another option. I think that if you're going to add a tight end, you're going to want to do it early. I do not think that Theo Johnson is a 5th round pick. I think he's probably a third round pick in this draft. But Brandon Rice is my pick, man. You can't let him walk. You can't. So 2 drafts in a row, he's my pick. For the rest of these guys, I'm just going to go best player available on my way out. So Chicago Bears, they need defensive line help, wide receiver, offensive line help. Broncos. Shoot, we'll give them Bo Nix. They could use another quarterback. I wish I could set this back to auto pick because you can't. Let's see here. Defensive line. A lot of wide receivers right here. Pony. Edge linebacker. Trotter. DB again. Safety. I didn't work. You didn't work with you? What are you talking about? Knicks to the Lions? Oh, no way. Lions aren't taking a quarterback. No way. I'd be highly surprised if that happened. I think that would happen if Jared Goff gets traded. I just don't see that happening either. Randy. Look, I'm tired. It's late, but I'm not that tired. I do love Sion Vaki to the Lions, man. I really do. I really like that guy. Love his work ethic. Tampa Bay, tight end, guard center. Arizona, wide receiver, guard center. All right, Trace, we'll see you. I'll be done here in about 5 minutes. It's the prepper for next Wednesday. You guys got to be able to go 4 hours. It's going to take a while to get through all of it. But at least next Wednesday, it'll all be pre-prepped, ready to go. Less dead air. I don't know if Pritchett goes in the 5th or not. I honest with you, Shadow. I haven't really studied up on Pritchett a whole lot. Like I got a lot of work to do between now and next week. There might be a couple of nights that I can't come on this week, or at least one night, depending on how much work I can get done. Because Wednesday's the biggest night, man. That's the biggest night for me. I've got to hit that one out of the park. I got to be rested, and it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long couple weeks, honestly, or 8-9 days, whatever we got left before I get on. That I got to be on my P's and Q's, man. All right, so last couple picks here. Let's see, a lot of halfbacks, a lot of wide receivers that I think are going to be slipping. LA, I think that LA is probably going to double dip on defensive line in this draft. And I mean, they've got to try to replace Aaron Donald somehow. And that's going to take a couple of guys to have a good camp competition with, in my opinion. All right. I don't really care about grades, but we'll see. We'll see what happened with the Lions grade. Of course, I didn't get a grade. That's great. Where's the rest of it? Did it totally screw it up? No grade. Wow, wonderful. All right, well, that's it. So if that's how it goes, a couple of trades, I think there's going to be a lot more trades, but the biggest thing is the Lions, man. I really think that if they want the best edge rusher or the best corner in this draft, they got to get up between 12 and 15 or 12 and 17, 20th at the very latest, but I don't see LA trading with us. Pittsburgh, I don't even know if Pittsburgh would trade with us. So getting up and getting, Jared Verse, hey, that's instant credibility on the defensive line. And then back at 61, I can't stand that pick. I can't. I think that picking that late, it's a good problem to have because your team's winning. It's just a bad problem to have when we were so close yet so far away and really need a couple of studs. So expect Brad Holmes right now, as today, rolls on by here in the next 36 minutes. I'm expecting Brad Holmes to be a mover and a shaker in this draft. The question is just how many times. But I'm gonna go ahead and save this thing, and we're gonna sign off for tonight. Appreciate you guys sticking around. I can't believe how many people stuck around through this whole thing. Maybe you guys fell asleep and your phone's just sitting there, and I'm just chatting around, and it is what it is. So it was a long night. It was a long night trying to get through even a couple of rounds live as opposed to having it ready. So I appreciate you guys hanging out again. As always, you guys are always great. More content's going to be coming. We're going to get through the draft, and then we're going to get back into it. But next Wednesday's the big one. We're going to start doing jerseys right away, like every hour on the hour. So as soon as we get in, we're going to be doing a jersey. So everybody show up by 6:00 next week, Wednesday. We're going to get the show on the road. Might have a couple of guests come in too. Bono, I think, is going to be with me at least. And we'll get things rolling. So, all right, you guys have a good night. We'll see you here in a couple of days. Look for some more breaking news tomorrow because I know we have some coming. All right, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.